ESPN.
Brown, scoop layup, no good. Rebounded by Tyler Conklin, and he'll dribble it out. And the Rams pull off the upset. It's only February, but the madness can be felt here in Rhode Island.
That is what it sounded like last night as SLU, unfortunately, takes the L against Rhode Island. We had mentioned this is going to be an interesting matchup between these two teams. I thought going in, though, T-Bone, that SLU would have the answers. Rhode Island is the kind of team where they pack it in defensively. Opponents shoot very well from beyond the arc. I mentioned yesterday in my underdog read, I thought this would be a great game from Trey Green. He finished with exactly 3 points.
So a BKO occurred.
Yep. Kellen Thames has not played well and has not played much recently. So when you have a couple of these guys, we've seen this with Mizzou, where they're getting a shorter bench, the rotation is shrinking, and now you see, all right, if a guy has an off night, can really affect things from you. SLU is deeper. They're a better team overall, so it doesn't affect them as much. That game was close last night. We've seen a few of these, though, recently from SLU. It seems as though their game is slipping a bit. It's not me coming on here panicking about where they're at, saying they're not a good team anymore. I don't feel any of that. I do think, though, this can serve as a bit of a wake-up call, because in the A-10, you get a couple mulligans. You don't have to go undefeated in conference play. It's okay that they lost a game against a team that is not great. Rhode Island is decent, not great. But this does remove some of that margin for error from you if you're SLU. Now, I looked today at ESPN.com and their bubble watch, and they wrote the following. The Billikens are a great story in their second season with Josh Schertz at the helm and a cast of characters that includes Robbie Avila, tracking for the best SRS in program history. I think that's the strength of record.
No,
but Tuesday's loss at Rhode Island did put a dent in their at-large odds, dropping them to 87%, which is how they've ended up back in the should-be zone for now. 87% is still pretty damn good.
Yeah.
That means 4 out of every 5 times, a little bit more than that we simulate this thing, they're getting into the tournament. I think SLU is going to be fine. It just serves as yet another reminder, T-Bone, nothing is guaranteed in a conference like this. If they were doing this in the SEC, they'd be fine. They do this in the Big 12. Man, there's been some great Big 12 basketball recently. They'd be A-okay. A-10, it's a little tougher. By the way, with T-Bone, Bradford, I'm BK. Good to be with you. It's 11:08. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. What did you make of SLU's loss last night against Rhode Island?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Hopefully this serves as a bit of a wake-up call, because they've been getting off to some slow starts here of late. Had a couple of games that have looked a little bit weird when you look at the schedule, where you're like, okay, they should take care of business. Like that, I think it was Duquesne game where they won by 4 points on the road. At the time, I said, okay, that's just coming off of you're going to these smaller environments, not as much juice at some of these arenas as it is playing at home. But that's dating back for a couple of games where we've seen they've really had trouble getting going. Even that Loyola Chicago game over the weekend really had trouble getting things going early in that first half before figuring it out. And the other thing that is kind of the eye-opener that I hope that we're going to see their adjustments to is, and Josh Schertz made reference to this in postgame, the teams are just being more physical than them right now. They are just putting the body to them and trying to wear them down right now, and that is something to keep an eye on. But I still think that they've got their at-large bid still secure for now. They used a mulligan at Rhode Island. You get 1 or 2 of those in A-10 this season. You win against VCU on Friday, though, a very good team that's playing some of their best basketball winners of 10 in a row. You win that basketball game and take care of business the rest of the way, odds are you're feeling pretty good. You may even still have another slip-up available to you if you take down VCU. So yesterday was more of, okay, hopefully this sends a little bit of a shockwave through that locker room of, okay, we're a good basketball team, but we can't take any day for granted, and try and really turn this on as they get ready for VCU on Friday.
The other thing this is doing now, I'm less interested in the conversation about do they or don't they make it to the NCAA tournament, because I think the answer is yes. 87%, that's very likely SLU will make it to the NCAA tournament. I'm much more interested on what does this do for their path to a Sweet 16? What does this do for their chances of even securing a win in that first round? The more you lose down the stretch, the worse that seeding gets. So you could go from maybe on the high side of things, a really low 4 seed or a 5 seed more likely, to now you drop and you slip to the 6 or the 7 or the 8 line, and now your path to the Sweet 16 gets tougher. If you end up as like an 8 seed, for example, man, that second round game is going up against one of these 1 seeds.
Yeah.
That is not where you want to be this year because the 1 seeds are all really freaking good, and that's always the case where they're good. Sometimes, though, you'll see, not exactly your typical 1 seeds. Like that last number 1 seed, maybe there are some flaws that you could take advantage of. Good luck this year. Michigan, Duke, Arizona, you're
even a 7 seed, I'd say. Good luck.
You go up against Illinois, Florida, Iowa State.
Yeah.
Good luck, man. Those teams are unbelievable this year. Can you imagine, by the way, if you're Illinois and you're watching this and you're thinking about, we're going to do this again. SLU is going to be playing in St. Louis in those pods against the Illini, 2 versus 7.
Watch out.
Second round of the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16 on the line. How would you feel if that's what the matchup
not great
ended up as, T-Bone?
Not great, because I really like this SLU team as one that's going to be able to surprise someone like an Illinois or an Iowa State potentially on that 2-3 line if they're in that area. No, I would not like that matchup really at all. I would still think Illinois would win because they are that good of a basketball team, but I don't think it is a easy cupcake because the Billikens can shoot the basketball well. We've seen now what the flaw is, I think, for both those sides. One, for SLU, it's the physicality, but for Illinois right now, it's defense. And if SLU's a team that can shoot the ball well, they could send you home if you're the Fighting Illini. So, no, I would not like that, and it would play to my theory that the committee hates Illinois, giving us like Loyola Chicago a couple years ago when they weren't an 11 seed or whatever they were. So it would play to my theory on the committee hates Illinois, that they'd put them in St. Louis against the Billikens as a 7 seed.
That's the update on SLU. On the Mizzou side of things, Bradford's all decked out. He's got his shirt. He's got his hat. I've got my shirt. I've got my jacket today.
No coordination. None.
It's a big game for the Tigers this evening. Mizzou is back in action. They are at home against Vandy. I was a little surprised to see the Vegas line for this one. It's only 3.5 points, basically saying, hey, this is a 1-possession game, one way or the other. Ken Palm sees this as a 6-point line between the two teams, so it's expected to be close. Vanderbilt is very clearly better than Mizzou, just flat out a better basketball team. But they've had a couple of slip-ups, especially away from home. They lost on the road at Texas earlier this season in SEC play. They lost at home against Oklahoma about a week and a half ago now. So this is not a perfect team, and they are prone to some slippage since they've been in conference play. Not quite the same offensively as they were in the non-con slate. T-Bone, a big one for Mizzou. If they pull this one off, I think they've got a really good chance to make it to the NCAA tournament. This is not only a resume builder, it's also maybe the best win of the season for Mizzou if they're able to get it. How are you feeling going into this one if you're a Tigers fan?
Yeah, I
know you're not.
I don't like your Tigers' chances in this one. I get it. Vandy's been slipping up a little bit in SEC play. I just think they're a better basketball team. And I can't, I've said this all season long, I don't know what I'm going to pinpoint as here's what Missouri's going to do tonight because they're too inconsistent. In theory, I think they get the ball to Mark Mitchell and say, Mark, go win us the basketball game. And if he doesn't play well, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know that you have answers if Mark Mitchell doesn't play well. So I like Vandy in this one, but you're right. It would be a huge win for the Tigers because, in theory, you've got at least 2 more quote-unquote cupcakes on the schedule in Mississippi State and Oklahoma, though they are on the road. We said all along they got to get to 10 conference wins. If you can get those 2 on the road and then pick up a win between Vandy, Arkansas, Tennessee, odds are you probably lock yourself into the tournament, so they would be in a good path if they're able to pull off the upset tonight.
Your bellwether player tonight is T.O. Barrett.
Oh.
Because T.O. Barrett in the game against Texas was the reason they lost. And I don't say that to diminish what he was or anything. He had 5 points in that game. T.O. Barrett previously, here are his point totals since basically taking over as their lead guard. 13, 11, 9, 21, 13, 16, 14, 17. T.O. Barrett had been one of their best scoring guards. It's the reason why he's taken over for Ant Robinson. They needed more of a scoring punch in that first unit, and he's provided that for them. He is super aggressive. He goes to the basket. He's big for a point guard. He turns the ball over way more than you'd want, but he is somebody that can score it. He didn't against Texas, and they didn't have enough beyond just basically Mark Mitchell. He was the one guy they could trust in that game. If you get a better game out of T.O. Barrett, they'll have a shot. If this is the start of a sophomore slump where teams have kind of figured out, okay, this is the way he's trying to attack us, and Vandy's able to take away some of his ability to drive to the bucket, they're very good on the interior, that will be problematic for Mizzou. So if you're looking for hey, this is what will kind of be the telling point on whether or not Mizzou's going to be able to get things going, T.O. Barrett would be the player for me that I'd be monitoring.
And I agree with you, while also saying you need more, and a lot more at that, out of Trent Pierce in this game. BK, back and forth, fluctuating as far as the offensive effort goes. This is somebody with the length and also the shot that has been refined from deep. He could be, you don't even want to say X factor. We keep repeatedly saying Mark Mitchell this, Mark Mitchell that, and rightfully so. But Trent Pierce, when you basically reinserted Pierce earlier into the starting lineup this season, that's when this team took a turn and actually began to play its best overall basketball. So that, coupled with hopefully not having a Sean Phillips get into early foul trouble. Vanderbilt is deep. Vanderbilt loves to run, averaging almost 90 points still altogether this season. So we'll see what happens tonight. Late tip-off at the Zoo, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it's perfect for some of us that are parents, and we can actually watch the game tonight. That'll be nice. T-Bone or Bradford, you can go ahead and take down the music. Want to pass this along. Some news coming from TMZ Sports, just posted a little bit ago. Rashee Rice, his longtime partner and mother of his children, has filed a lawsuit against the NFL star, accusing him of choking, strangling, scratching, hitting, and headbutting her over a 19-month period. Some of the details were filed this week in district court. They were obtained by TMZ. She lays out a pattern of what she says was abuse between December of 2023 and July of 2025. So that is the latest against Rashee Rice. It feels like there is a significant pattern of every 6 months or so, there's a new story that takes place with Rashee Rice. So this is all just allegations at this point, but there is a lawsuit that has been filed now against Rashee Rice in a district court. So that's big news in the NFL. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In about 15 minutes, we will discuss one of the best young Blues players and what he's doing in the Olympics, breaking an Olympic record. We'll talk about Dalibor Dvorsky and what he's been able to do in the Olympics coming up in about 15 minutes. Do want to hear from you. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Coming up next, heard from Oli Marmol earlier today, both on TMA and also his press availability. He said exactly what you would want to hear about one of the young Cardinals players. We'll let you hear it next year on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company.
Ready to ramp up the excitement, golf fans? BetMGM is making your next golf winner bets even better with Second Chance. What's Second Chance? Ever bet on your favorite golfer to win a tournament only to see them miss the green? Well, with BetMGM's Second Chance promotion, you'll get your stake back in cash if your tournament winner bet finishes in second instead. That's right. Simply bet on any player to win a scheduled golf tournament during a promotional week. If you're right, you win. But if your pick finishes in second instead of first, you get your stake back in cash. Watch your favorite players go for the win all season long and bet knowing you'll get your stake back if they finish second. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only, Missouri only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards paid back in unrestricted withdrawable funds. Please play responsibly.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. So at this point in Cardinals camp, there's not a lot of good news that can come out. Typically, this is the kind of time of the year where you get the Pablo Lopez news, where it's, his elbow exploded. We don't know how, we don't know why, but it's gone. And now he needs a new one, and that means he's going to miss the entirety of the 2026 season.
Yeah, and about half of next year.
Yep. Eshawn Henderson, one of the bright spots of the Cardinals' 2025 season. I think he was their co-minor league pitcher of the year, if I'm not mistaken. He has a flexor strain. He's going to miss at least a portion of camp, and we'll see beyond that. But it's not what you want to hear going into camp. Those are the kinds of stories that you generally hear. There are also some puff pieces. I mean, Joe Opozo lost a bunch of weight going into camp. He looks legitimately good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite the transformation. If you saw him on the TMA page earlier today, they talked with him. He looks like a different human being, so God bless. But that's the other kind of story that you hear this time of the year. I like hearing some of the, hey, there's been some changes with the mentality from player X, Y, or Z. We heard this with Brendan Donovan a couple of years ago, where it's like, hey, this guy's taken over as the leader in the clubhouse. Like, it's real, it's tangible, and there's some stuff there. I was very curious heading into camp what we would hear about Masyn Winn. Because I know we've had our differences of opinion on the value of Winn as a baseball player and what he brings to the table, the ceiling of him as an offensive player. The Cardinals have talked a lot about the kind of value that he can bring inside of the clubhouse, because he's somebody that a lot of guys want to follow. And it's up to him on whether or not he wants to use that standing within the clubhouse as a leader. Here was Oli Marmol earlier today. This is talking with the media on what he's learned about his team and what has stood out to him in the first week of Cardinals camp.
What stands out the most is there's a level of maturity that's actually pretty cool to watch right now. In him, you go through this progression as a player where you see yourself and you're worried about yourself, and it's hard for you to see the whole field. He's starting to see things outside of himself and opportunities to have conversations, even in the lives. There's a couple of things that have popped up that are really good. Some of the conversations in the clubhouse, you can tell his awareness in seeking opportunities to lead. So that's been encouraging to watch.
That was Oli Marmol talking about Masyn Winn, the Cardinals' young shortstop, and his new role as one of the leaders on this Cardinals team. T-Bone, I know that it's hard to put a value on that. You know, like they need guys that are going to step up inside of the clubhouse now that Donnie's gone, now that a lot of the veterans are gone, and it's possible Masyn Winn becomes one of those players. When you hear that, for me, I hear it and say, that's exactly the kind of buzz I want to hear at this time of the year. That's it. How much credit do you put into that, though? How much value do you put into stuff like that?
I don't put a lot of value into it, because I think the leadership aspect of stuff in the clubhouse, it gets overstated and overvalued across all sports, honestly. I don't think it's just a baseball thing. Sure. I think it really gets overvalued in hockey. But, you know, someone does have to step into some kind of a leadership role in what maybe be the voice or the guy that kind of helps keep the energy up, especially in a year like this where, you know, I mean, I know the Cardinals are saying all the right things. We're going to play hard. We're going to try and beat expectations. But let's be honest, if they don't and they end up being where we expect them, you're talking about a team that's out of it by potentially, June, July, where you'll reasonably be able to look at them and go, okay, they have no chance. And Masyn Winn's the kind of guy that could help bring some energy to that clubhouse. You know, the leadership stuff don't really care about, but you don't want this to become a place where you dread going to work. And a guy like Masyn Winn, I mean, we've been in the clubhouse before. That guy brings some energy before the game to that clubhouse, and they're going to need that potentially this year if things go off the rails. And, you know, that's no shot towards Goldschmidt or Arenado when they were kind of the leaders of this clubhouse. They didn't really bring the energy. It was more of, hey, I'm doing my thing, and I'm going to lead by example by showing you what I'm doing. And if Winn can be a guy that can bring some energy to this clubhouse, that would be a huge thing for them. And the same could be true of if I heard that quote for a Jordan Walker or maybe an Alec Burleson. Winn's, though, a little different just because he has kind of a charisma to him that the other guys don't. So it is somewhat encouraging to hear that. I don't put too much stock in it, but I am glad to see that he is at least going to be potentially one of those guys that will take on a leadership role.
We all have people in our own lives that you just know people gravitate toward for whatever reason. You know, like I've got a buddy, his name's Daniel. Everybody loves him. Just he's the guy. You walk into any room and people gravitate toward him. He's funny. He's smart. He just gets along with anybody, right? That's Masyn Winn. Masyn Winn is the guy in the Cardinals locker room that he has an aura about him, and he has a strong personality, and he has an energy, and you can see it with the way that he plays. That also comes off when you're just talking with him. And I think sometimes, especially as a young player who plays the way that he does, has the personality that he does, that can go in a few different directions, right? We've seen this across Major League Baseball. Like Francisco Lindor is a guy that has this huge energy about him. And I think there are times where that energy is for the better, and there are times where it's maybe not. You saw in the Mets locker room last year, I don't think it was the greatest place to be for most of the season. I would say C.J. Abrams. He's a guy that has a ton of energy. He's a guy that plays with a lot of charisma. I don't know how much he's viewed as a leader inside of that clubhouse. We've heard some stories about how, like, hey, you know, he's maybe a guy that is more of a net negative than a net positive when he's inside of your clubhouse. So for a guy like Masyn Winn, you want players to follow him, but you want them to follow him when he's doing all of the right things. Not just some of them, but all of the right things. So to hear stuff like this early in camp, it to me is super encouraging. And it's the kind of thing where you hear it about a 24-year-old and you say, hey, man, he's growing up right before our very eyes. I don't know what this means for production. I don't know what this means for what his 2026 season is going to be. But long term, if he wants to be that, you know, face of the franchise kind of player, and he's talked openly about how that's what he wants to be. He wants to be the guy that carries on the legacy of an Ozzie Smith, not to be the next Ozzie or anything, but the shortstop that is the leader, that is the face of the franchise, that plays a style that is representative of this city and this team. If he wants to be all of those things, these are some of the aspects of his game that he's going to have to continue to evolve with.
Yeah, and I've seen someone bring up on the text line, like maybe having someone where it's not uber intensity in the clubhouse is good for the Cardinals. I do think they need a little bit of that fresh kind of charisma being brought in because, and this is no shot to Donovan, but Donovan did a pretty good job, at least based on the conversations around the club, of taking over that leadership role. But Donnie isn't so much a guy that I would get the sense of doing it. He was more of the Goldie and I'm doing it kind of my way, and I'm going to kind of lead by example rather than I'm going to bring this fun energy to the clubhouse. And that's not a shot against guys. Some guys just can't do that, right? Like if Burleson took on a role.
Shouldn't.
Exactly.
That's not who Donnie is.
And like, I don't like Burley could have a little bit of this. He has a little something to him, but not the same charisma as like a Masyn Winn, for example.
Burleson has a dry sense of humor. Masyn Winn is just this fun,
upbeat,
like youthful energy. And there's that's different, and you need both. Like I think it's really important to have. Like, Donnie came from a military background, right? His parents were in the military, and so he brought a lot of that. He was a disciplinarian. He was a guy that came in, he was going to do things a certain kind of way. I remember Oli talked about this on our show where he said, I know exactly where that guy is going to be at any time during his pregame routine. I know he's going to be taking ground balls at this time. I know he's going to be in the box at this time. I know he's going to be taking his nap at this time. Like, he has a very regimented routine pregame, and that's how he went about his business. There's value in that. There are other guys who just kind of go with the flow, and they get their work done, but they go about it their own way. It might not be super structured on a day-to-day basis. It's just different. Everybody goes about things differently, and that's just one example of how this can come to the forefront. But I do like hearing he's taking on some of these responsibilities. There were two newsy stories today coming out of Cardinals camp. One was the unfortunate side of things. The other, I think, is maybe more positive. Unfortunate, Brandon Clark, according to the Cardinal Nation, is expected to be out until at least June. He had some kind of a a shoulder issue, but it doesn't sound like it's structural.
Yeah.
It's like a shoulder aneurysm, which I haven't heard that a whole lot when it comes to baseball players. But according to the Cardinal Nation, he's expected to be held out because of this surgery until June. And we'll see what happens at that point in time. The Cardinals have had their fair share of young pitching injuries already in camp. That one sucks that he was the guy that the Cardinals got in return for Sonny Gray. He was the headliner in that deal. He's had a pretty extensive injury history in his minor league career. Fingers crossed he's able to get beyond that in the second half of this season. The other, I would say, bigger, more pressing piece of news for the 2026 Cardinal season, Joel Pozo was taking ground balls at first base today. T-Bone, yesterday we had a conversation about his value and whether or not he should even be a part of this team. If he's your backup first baseman to Alec Burleson, does it change your opinion on this at all?
I think he probably makes the team then if he's your backup first baseman, because I don't know. Because the reason I was having a tough time figuring out what his role was yesterday was because I was viewing him as a catcher / pinch hitter. And the reason I was having a tough time is I don't think this team's pinch hitting very often. So I was just thinking they're going to go with someone that provides a little bit more flexibility, like a Fermin or someone like that to come in and could play the infield. But if he's going to be able to play first base, there's going to be times where they need to get Burley days off. I think this would then make sense of how they create that path forward, because I don't think he'll be catching much if he's here at the big league squad. I think that would be Herrera and Pages, and then you could use him in like an emergency if need be to go behind the plate. But this would make some sense as to how his path gets kind of cleared towards the major league roster. And I'll also say this to the pitching injuries real quick. By the way, this is why you have to constantly be taking shots at these high upside arms. The more the Cardinals are moving towards this, hey, we got to get stuff. And I heard Oli say this on, I think it was TMA this morning. Hey, I like some of the stuff I'm seeing from these guys. Yeah, when you add stuff, you add guys that break as well, potentially. So it sucks that they're starting to deal with some injuries from the minor league levels. But that's why you got to keep adding to this pitching core, because you have to have a bunch of pieces, because some guys will flame out. Some guys will deal with injuries, which would cause them to flame out. You're still looking for that stuff, but it leads to more injuries.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. In 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show and ask any of those questions coming up in 15 minutes. But next, it's been a hell of an Olympics so far for the hockey side of things. It has been particularly interesting for one young Blues player who has now broken an Olympic record from somebody of his age. We'll tell you who that is, what he's done next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Jared McCormick from Ellis Grove, Illinois. He is our newest 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.
basketball is on ESPN. Tonight, Connecticut and Creighton tip off at 6. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Marmol meets TMA. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Several hours ago, Cardinals manager Oli Marmol sat down with Tim McKernan and company to discuss various spring training storylines. Optimism around Jupiter running high thus far.
There's a lot of enthusiasm. That's the way I would kind of position this in that clubhouse. And a lot of it is because these guys are all in the same boat of understanding where they're at in their careers. And there's a lot of clarity as to where we're headed and the opportunities that are going to be given.
STL's Grapefruit League opener against Washington set for Saturday, February 21st. Last night, hardwood-wise, Rhode Island beat SLU 81-76, snapping the Billikens' 18-game winning streak. St. Louis committed 18 turnovers. Elsewhere, top-ranked Michigan defeated Purdue 91-80. Florida whipped South Carolina 72-62. This evening's SEC tilts include Arkansas, Alabama, as well as Vanderbilt, Missouri. Olympic men's hockey, Canada, Czechia are knotted 2-2 through 2+ periods. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Dalibor Dvorsky putting up a historic Olympics for somebody of his age. 6 points, the most ever by an NHL rookie in a single Olympic tournament. I believe it broke Alex Ovechkin's previous record, if I'm not mistaken. The most ever by a Blues player in a single Olympic tournament. Also, saw this from Grant McCagg, who posted it on Twitter earlier today. He now has 48 points in 31 international championship games. This includes him at the U18, U20, and now the Olympic level. Quote, he's always been a big game player. He's only 20. Blues fans should be looking forward to seeing him in the playoffs whenever they make it back. T-Bone, we've seen some of this with Dvorsky over the last 2 months or so. He is a guy that has really taken his game to the next level. In his last 24 games, he has 6 goals, 11 points, and is a +3 despite playing more. He's playing 16, 17, 18 minutes a night in most of these games. That's a 20-goal, about 40 to 50-point pace over a full season. That's pretty damn good for a 20-year-old man. A plus player on the ice, 20-plus goals. It's the kind of thing I was hoping for from Dvorsky when he became a fully formed player. Yeah. And he's already potentially doing this, again, at the age of 20. What are we seeing right now with Dalibor Dvorsky?
I can't help but wonder if we're seeing his kind of breakout moment here at the Olympics, and we're going to just see him kind of build on this once he gets back here with the St. Louis Blues. I asked Joey about this, and this was when he had a point in the Olympics last Thursday, and he said, look, you will potentially come back from the Olympics with a ton of confidence if you're Dalibor Dvorsky, because you're doing this in a tournament of the best on best. This isn't where, you could be having a great game when you're with the Blues, but you're playing like the Canucks, who are the worst team in the NHL. This is, everybody's got their best players available for them at their country. He's a +1. He's scoring on the power play. He's scoring at 5-on-5. I can't help but wonder if this is his breakout moment. And it's not apples to apples. It's kind of apples to oranges. But TJ Oshie became a household name after the Olympics. TJ Sochi after that shootout win against Russia. He was older and was an established NHLer, but everybody then knew his name after that. And everybody then started to realize, hey, this is a good hockey player. I wonder if this is going to be the moment that in 5-10 years we look back on and go, man, this Dvorsky guy's a really good player that the Blues drafted at 10th overall in the NHL draft. And really, we look back on and go, he really started this moment at the Olympics with Slovakia when they went on their run to potentially get a medal.
Yeah, very different. Incredibly different situations. But I get where you're coming from there on that became the jumping off point for Oshie. This can become that for Dalibor Dvorsky, just in different ways. That was about national pride and all of these different things. But I hear you.
Hey, they didn't medal in that tournament, that team.
Yeah, but the goal that he scored was pretty significant. And without it, I don't think he has the same name recognition nationally.
To be fair, Dvorsky doesn't score that game against Sweden. They don't have a bye.
I don't think people in America care as much about what's going on with Slovakia as opposed to Team USA.
This is the moment.
I will say this. If he was doing the exact same thing, nothing else changes about his performance other than he's doing this for Team USA instead, or hell, even Team Canada, instead of doing it for Team Slovakia. I do think some of that would be happening right now. I think you'd see hey, breakout talk of Dalibor Dvorsky. I just think the fact that it's happening for Slovakia doesn't quite have the same recognition here locally, but that's okay. I don't really care. I just care about what it means for the Blues. And this is the kind of piece that you need in order to take this rebuild into the next level. You needed to develop that number 2 center. And we were wondering, can he be that? Or is he more of a third line center? That was a lot of the talk coming into the season. If he can be a 20-plus goal scorer, 50-plus point producer, and be at least passable defensively, that's a second-line center in the NHL nowadays. Now, I think there's some questions on, do you have the right top-line center to be able to make that work? I think Thomas can be that if he's given the right wingers to be with him. But you've just got to keep building this lineup out. And this gets us to the next topic of conversation with the Blues, which is Dylan Holloway, who was back on the ice yesterday. It sounds as though he is at or near 100% with that ankle injury that he's been nursing. Thank God, man, because this season has been incredibly frustrating for him. He's been in and out of the lineup. He hasn't looked the same as he did, especially in the second half of last year. He went on that torrid pace after you saw Jim Montgomery hired. He still technically is on pace for 20 goals this year if he was going to play a full 82-game schedule. He's not going to, but that would be his pace. That's pretty good for a down season. Mm-hmm. But we were hoping for, can he take that next step? Can he be a 35-goal scorer for the Blues? He's like half of that this season. If there is one storyline that I'm monitoring for the rest of the way, not just for 2026 because whatever, but for the long term of what it means for the Blues, I'm really curious what the next 20-plus games of Dalibor Dvorsky's career looks like. It matters for his contract. It matters for what the Blues are going to be looking for this offseason. And it just matters for his future in general because this is a guy that has been dealing with injuries now for a couple of years. I hope this doesn't become the story with Holloway. I hope he can be somebody that is consistently on the ice producing the way that we saw a year ago. Because when he's right, man, is that guy fun as hell to watch.
Yeah, I think outside of the young guys, I think you almost have to have a separate category for them, especially when you become a seller at the deadline. He's a veteran I've got my eye on the most, quote-unquote veteran, I should say, when we start the second half of the season because of what you said. One, I want to see him stay healthy in the second half. But two, I want to see that second half guy that we saw last year for the Blues to where, because I don't think you're ever going to be able to look at whatever he does the rest of the way this year and go, all right, there's the breakout for Holloway, but can I at least see it again and go, okay, maybe next year if he can stay healthy, you'll be able to see that. That's what I really want to see from him in the second half of the season, and hopefully he's back healthy. Hopefully he's able to get back to being that. That is the guy that I'm going to have as the veteran that's on the team, quote unquote. He's the one I'm going to have my eye on when we get the second half of the season started in a couple weeks.
He's T-Bone, that's Bradford. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario.
Want more Blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
the picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
Oh boy, we got a big one taking place right now. Canada, 7 minutes away from a potential elimination. Chachi up 3-2. Spoiler alert.
Oh.
Winning 3-2 with 7.5 minutes to go. Binner just allowed a goal that you probably want him to save. Chechia with a really great play in their own zone. Block shot. Take it up the ice the other direction. I believe it was a 2-on-2 kind of situation.
Late trailer the third.
Take it up the middle of the ice. And then I think it was Andre Palat put it home. Whoo, baby. This is getting interesting. The Binner takes are going to be flying if Canada ends up losing this game. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, because that one, the other two that we saw the other two in the office earlier. One was a kind of a breakdown on a turnover by Stone. They throw it in front. It's one of those goals he doesn't have a chance. The power play, like Pasternak let off a one-timer.
Yeah, I mean,
you get beat by one of the best in the world. That one was one, though, from Palat. 3-on-2. He had plenty of time to react to it. It was a dust-off shot. Didn't get over, didn't make that big game save that big game Binner would make. And right now he's being outplayed by the goalkeeper of Czechia so far.
Thought Canada was supposed to do that type of thing in transition.
They are, but they got goalied.
Peppering with shots, hey.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We'll keep you updated with whatever happens over the next 6 minutes as Canada down 3-2 in the Olympics. From the 618, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would be your level of optimism that the Cardinals could be this year's version of the Reds or the Marlins and outplay their projections to be in that wild card conversation by the end of the year? Scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of optimism that the Cardinals could be one of those teams that sneaks into the wild card conversation, T-Bone?
A 3.
Feels right.
I'm not sure about their pitching and their offense. And so I basically said...
That seems important.
I basically said the whole team. Because I think the rotation, there's interesting names in it. I don't know if you're going to have guys that really can step up and do, for the Reds, for example, you don't have a Hunter Green as a number 1, and then you don't have an Andrew Abbott as a number 2. And maybe someone develops into that and surprises me, but I don't see that in the range of outcomes for these guys. And then offensively, I just think there's too many big question marks around some of these guys with Walker and Gorman. So I would put it at a 3. I do think, though, this would be a year where if you win basically what the Reds did again, I think you could get back in the playoffs, which was 82-80, because it feels like the National League is down across the board.
Maybe. The other thing about it is, I think not this year, but 2027, if we play baseball, we'll see. That could be the year where they potentially have that. Maybe Liam Doyle arrives earlier than expected. One of the pitchers that's currently down in the minor league system becomes really good quickly. And then you have the rotation filled out by the guys currently in it. And then you have one player surprise on the position player side of things. It's not as though Cincinnati had this great offense last year. I mean, I think a lot of people would bring up Elly De La Cruz. He had a 777 OPS, which is good. That's not elite. You could get better than that this year out of Ivan Herrera. I kind of expect that type of a season offensively out of Ivan Herrera this year. Now, he also added 37 stolen bases. I don't think Herrera's giving you that, but for all of the positives that come with Elly De La Cruz, it wasn't as though he was this otherworldly offensive player last year. So I think there's at least a chance, but I think we're a year away from that. This year, I agree. 3 or 4 would be where my level of optimism is.
The thing that carried the Reds last year was their starting rotation.
Yep.
They were 9th in baseball in ERA at 3.85. That was what carried the Reds. You're right, it wasn't the offense. De La Cruz was awful in the second half of the season. He was great in the first half, and then he wore down and he got tired. He wasn't the same guy.
They had 3 pitchers in their starting rotation with a sub-3.5 ERA. Abbott with 166 innings. Lodolo, who I don't think gets talked about very often because he's not quite as high
And
profile
he
as
deals
some of
with
the others.
injuries a decent amount of the time, too.
But he had a 3.3, and then Hunter Green, who is a legit number one when healthy, at a 2.7 ERA. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 314. What would be your plan with the glut of back-end starters for the Cardinals between Dobbins, Fitz, Leahy, Palante, and McGreevy? It seems as though at least two of them won't make the rotation. Do you trade them, move them to the bullpen, demote to the minors? How do you handle this?
I think you demote a guy to the minors. I think that's what happens. I think to start the year, now this will be where it gets interesting. I think to start the year, they'll probably go 6-man rotation, just because they believe it helps keep the guys healthier in the first month of the year, because you don't escape injuries just from spring training. We see a lot of arms go down in April as well. So I think they start with a 6-man rotation, and then whichever guy, lost the job in spring training, ends up probably in the minors. Maybe if it's not Palante could end up being in the bullpen. And then you go from, okay, well, who ended up playing best? If it's Leahy can slide to the bullpen. If it's not Leahy and it's Dobbins, for example, believe Dobbins has got options. So you send him down, and it's tough, but he lost the job, right? He goes down in the minors, and he has to earn it back by competing with those guys at AAA that'll be coming forward. And when there's an injury, which there will be at times this year, I would assume, considering they're probably not going to be as healthy as they were last year, he gets the call up and then gets to come back to the rotation.
Leahy does not have any options remaining at this point, so he's a guy that's going to be on the big league roster one way or another.
And he's a guy that can play up in the bullpen, as we saw last year.
Correct. So he is somebody to keep in mind as he's going to be here. It's just a matter of where, what position he's going to be. Is he going to be a starter or a reliever? Fitz and Dobbins both have options, so they can go back down if you want to. Same with all the other guys mentioned here. I do think you're going to start out the season with a 6-man rotation, so that will answer for some of this. Start out with a 6-man, let them compete, and see where it goes from there. So I don't think there's any real downside to any of this. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of More Likely to Happen. You guys give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. About 5 minutes to go in this Czechia versus Canada game. Czechia up 3-2. We'll give you all of the updates from that as we go along here as well. Coming up next, Oli Marmol gave his take earlier today on how we should evaluate whether or not 2026 is a success for the Cardinals. We'll let you hear that, give you our thoughts on it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Bit of an update in the Canada versus Czechia game. An unbelievable tip-in goal by Nick Suzuki with about 3.5 to play. Knots it up at 3 goals apiece. If this is to go into overtime, T-Bone just reminded us it will be 3-on-3 overtime for 10 minutes coming up. There's about 2 minutes to play. So if you want to check that out, 2 minutes left to play. Canada tied at 3 with Czechia right now. It feels like Czechia is hanging on by a thread. They've had a couple of icings over the last couple of minutes. This is one of those. I saw that that documentary recently on Netflix for another icing for Czechia for the Miracle game, U.S. versus Russia. And they were talking about how it felt like every second
wave after wave
took forever. And that's got to be the way that Czechia is feeling right now, just hanging on by a thread.
And with it being 3-on-3, and don't get me wrong, Czechia's got some NHLers on that roster.
Sure.
It's not the McDavids, the McKinnons, the Celebrini's of the world. It felt like they had to hold on to that 3-2 lead here in regulation to win this thing.
Somebody said, lucky, YouTube chat, lucky from John Scores, from Gator, luck, or puck luck.
That was not luck.
That was skill.
That was a hell of a tip.
Pure skill.
I don't know how guys do that. It's
impressive.
Unbelievable. Not only to have the hand-eye to get the stick up, but then also to deflect it at the right angle. It's impressive, man. So what a play by Nick Suzuki. By the way, just a little local angle here. He is the guy that basically took the spot of Robert Thomas.
Oh, you had to go there, didn't you?
Because there was a chance for Robert Thomas to play his way onto the team, and he wasn't able to do so. Nick Suzuki did. Benner just making a huge save on a potential breakaway opportunity. That's the save they really needed, because that was one that if that goes in, oh boy, minute 10 to go, game over. I think that was Natchez too, so that's a biggie right there.
Yeah, but you're right. Suzuki took that
Deflected shot
from Thomas. That's where we've seen a couple of these breaks come from Czechia's on block shots like that. They're getting in the shooting lanes, knowing they've got to win this game the hard way. And we said it earlier. Someone was saying, wasn't that third goal given up by Binnington a tough save? Yeah, when you get to best on best, though, you got to make some of these big time saves. We saw this in the Four Nations tournament last year. That was one right there. That big game Benner shows up, makes a save, and we'll see if they ultimately win because of it.
That was a huge save.
Literally a breakaway.
Yeah.
Stepped up, took away the angle. Oh,
they just showed the replay, and that's the one where it could have gone the other direction. And you want to talk about takes flying. Oh, boy.
I had to check Dom's Twitter page right away after he gave that one up.
All right, so Oli Marmol was on with TMA earlier today, and he was asked about how he would define success in 2026. It's not as easy to answer that question as it has been for really most of the last 30 years here in St. Louis. So how would the manager of the baseball team define it? Take a listen.
I think it's a combination of things. Like, we talk about it internally all the time. We're never going to show up to the field not trying to win. And you have to measure success off of how that's going, okay? But at the same time, you're closely monitoring the progress of each player. Because if you're really trying to build this up and create a core that you can run with, to then add pieces to contend, you need to know who those are. So there's going to be times where we're playing a guy, even when he's struggling, to find out a little more about at the expense of that day. But, damn it, we're going to try every day to win. And that's what St. Louis expects. But by measuring both, we'll get to that point that we're trying to get to much quicker. So it'll be a good balance, but that's the way I'm looking at it at the moment.
What'd you make of that?
I think he's spot on how they're going to have to evaluate this year, and I think it's how fans are going to have to evaluate it as well this season. Because I don't think you can realistically evaluate them on wins and losses in a rebuild, and it's going to come down to, is the team playing hard when we get into the second half of the season, the dog days of the summer? Does Oli still have these guys playing hard? And it does come down to, he said it, evaluating who's going to be part of this when we're ready to contend again. Because there's some guys that are on the fringe of being out of this core, right? Jordan Walker's one of them. Nolan Gorman, one of them. You're trying to see, does Burleson fit into this? Because he put together a really good season last year, but is he going to be able to sustain that moving forward? Same for Ivan Herrera. You know, I think that's the way you have to evaluate the Cardinals this year. I don't care if they lose 100 games. If I leave the season and go Burleson, Herrera, Masyn Winn, insert another J.J. Weatherholt, those guys belong in the core for the St. Louis Cardinals. You can add a couple pitchers into that, and they competed hard for 162 games. Success of a season for the St. Louis Cardinals.
It's tough, though, to define, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a feel thing more than it is, hey, I can look at this, it's black and white, you made the playoffs or you didn't. Or for a lot of teams, like this season, if the Dodgers don't at least make it to the NLCS, I think you can make an argument if they don't make it to the World Series, but at least the NLCS, that's a failure. They did not have a successful year. Or for some other teams, like the Milwaukee Brewers, success is defined as winning the division. The Cubs, success is defined as winning the division. I don't care how you get there, but that's how you define it. And for individual players, for some, it's like, did you put up all-star caliber numbers? For others, did you hit 270? Whatever it is, right? Everybody's got their marks that they need to get to. For the Cardinals, I don't think you can really have those black and white numbers so much as it is, it's a feel. Did they take that next step? Were they playing hard? Did you extract every ounce of talent that was available to you? And I don't think that is the same. It's not as objective as it has been in the past.
So I asked this question because you mentioned it's not kind of black and white. I don't know if this would fall to this or not. If Oli Marmol gets an extension at the end of the year, is that the black and white answer? Because that's how he's being evaluated by Chaim Bloom.
No, because they could give him an extension and we could disagree with it.
That's fair, but I think right now, like, what is Chaim evaluating Oli Marmol on? I think it's basically what Oli laid out there is defining success for the Cardinals.
Sure, but that's also not black and white. That is very much a, what is he seeing behind the scenes? How are these young players developing? And in his eyes, maybe they are developing more so than what some fans would see, right? So I don't think it's black and white at all. I think that may be something you could point to if you were trying to define what success looks like in 2026, and that's reasonable. But I think reasonable minds could also disagree on that. Like the same evidence could be presented, and we come to very different conclusions. Like I may view this season if, for example, J.J. Weatherholt, I may view this season as a success for J.J. Weatherholt if he's 5% above league average because of his age, because it's really hard to come up to the major league level and succeed at 23 years old as a rookie. That's hard. And for him to do so and to be above league average immediately and handle a position that he hasn't spent a ton of time playing, I think that's pretty good. There may be some Cardinals fans that view that, though, and say, hold on, this guy was sold to me as a star. We took him in the top 10. He's got to be like the potential face of the franchise. That looks like Masyn Winn's offense from a couple of years ago. That's not what I was sold. And so they may view the exact same player, same season as a disappointment relative to their own expectations. So that's why I view it as much less black and white than, get to the playoffs or bust. Get to the World Series or bust. That's easier to define.
I think that's fair. I think the reason I asked that question, because I think that will be telling how the Cardinals view 2026. I don't think Chaim gives Oli an extension if he doesn't think that some guy's developed or not. And then I think he would be telling us, now he may not say it at a press conference. He may just say, hey, we wanted to go a different direction. We felt there was a better name available, whatever else he may say. But I think he would be telling you with his actions, not his words, that he didn't define 2026 as a success. And again, that's not defined by wins or losses, but I think that's how they're going to determine if Oli Marmol's the guy moving forward.
Agreed.
And that's kind of how I would look at it. You're right. Fans are going to look at it differently depending on what you're viewing and what you're monitoring. Maybe it has nothing to do with Oli Marmol, period. But that's the way that I kind of would see it, that if Chaim gives an extension to him, the Cardinals will view 2026 as a success, because I think those are the things Oli laid out. Those are the things that I am judging them off of myself.
Totally agree. I guess we were talking about it almost from two different viewpoints of how will the Cardinals define it internally versus how will we define it. Like they can tell you how they're viewing it with their actions. That does not mean that every Cardinals fan would define it accordingly. By the way, an update, we do have the game winner Canada will advance to the next round as they have officially taken down Czechia. They had to fight tooth and nail to be able to get this one, but ultimately they win it in 3-on-3 overtime. It was that Mitch Marner who
I think
put it
so.
home for the game winner there. So game winner in overtime, Mitchie Marner.
How fitting.
Yeah.
Mitch Marner, the Canadian, gets Canada to the semis, even though he was run out of town by a Canadian market. You gotta love storylines in sports.
Yep. Can't really ask for much more than that. Benner made a few big saves down the stretch, too.
Yeah.
He kept them alive because he had one in overtime, a couple of down the stretch there in the third period that pushed him over the top. So good job by him. I thought the third goal was a little bit of a softie, but after that, he picked it up and reminded everybody, including us, why they went with him in this game.
And now you proceed to wonder about Crosby's availability, the captain, down the stretch.
Because he did not play in the third period at all. Mitch Marner, by the way, an unbelievable play.
Ooh.
Split the defenders and then put it home. A hell of a goal by Marner to be able to advance Team Canada. Coming up in about 15 minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Do the Cardinals have a most indispensable player for 2026? We've done our list in recent years going into spring training of who the 20 most important players are. And number one on that list is typically like, hey, if they lose him, it's game over. Sonny Gray's been that for like 2 straight seasons for the Cardinals. Who is that player for them in 2026? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. More likely to happen next year on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 1986, a 5-0 shutout win over the Red Wings at the arena. Doug Gilmour, Eddie Beers on the power play. Rick Mahar, Doug Gilmour, and Gino Cavallini all picking up goals and getting the shutout for St. Louis. Rick Wamsley stopping all 26 shots.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. What's more likely to happen? They'll figure it out. BK and Ferrario's most likely to happen.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this one. Don't love it, but it is what it is. More likely to play 16 games for the Chiefs this year, Rashee Rice or Tyreek Hill?
Oh, boy. I'll go with Rice just because he's in the building right now. He's already a Kansas City Chief. I think Tyreek, there's a good chance he comes back, but until it happens, I'm going to stick with Rashee Rice as the guy.
I'm going with Rice as well. Yesterday, guys, we went through the laundry list of teams elsewhere in the AFC alone. Maybe a Buffalo, maybe a New England fits potentially for one Tyreek Hill. Rice begrudgingly. Not for 16, but yeah, more games.
I'm going Tyreek.
Ooh.
I think there's a decent chance we've seen Rashee Rice play his last game as a Chief. He's in his final year of his rookie deal. These allegations today are pretty significant, and the NFL will almost certainly investigate these claims as well. If he's deemed some amount of wrongdoing, he would be a repeat offender under the personal conduct policy. He already has a 6-game suspension under his belt. It would be lengthier than that. It's possible it's a full season suspension, and at that point in time, he might just be done with Kansas City. So I'll go with Tyreek Hill. I think there's a decent chance that they end up signing him, and if they do, I think it's far more likely he plays a full season this year in Kansas City than Rashee Rice. T-Bone?
Guys, more likely to happen. The Cardinals surprise us and finish 500 or better, or they lose 100 games this season.
I'll say 500 or better. I don't think they're going to lose 100 games. I don't think they're that bad.
Going with the 500 possibility as well, because if you're talking about 100, maybe that's not historically bad, but it's close enough, right? You have enough representative bats, I think, exciting factors that could ultimately make that impact to the rotation this year. You could argue, actually, that you may ultimately get more from the front end. I like the competition. I like the vibes. I'll buy into that and say you're competitive in the NL Central.
See, I would go more likely they lose 100 games.
Ooh.
I'm not sure they're capable of being 500 or better. I do think there are things that can happen that lead them to being 100 losses. The bullpen's not as good as it was last year. These starters are kind of what they were last year, which is a bunch of 4 or 5 ERA guys. And if you add that on top of a bullpen that doesn't perform like it did last year, and an offense that could very much underperform and was, as some projections, like Pacoda had them, as the worst or second worst offense in baseball, that's how you get to 100 losses. So I would say that's more likely.
As we've stated, guys, huge one in mid-Missouri tonight. The Tigers hosting number 19 Vanderbilt. Last night at Rhode Island, the Billikens falling, so more likely to happen. SLU drops another A-10 game in the remainder of the regular season, or Mizzou splits its 2 contests against Arkansas ahead.
I think there's a decent chance SLU loses one more, so yeah. I'll go SLU losing one more. I don't think that's an indictment on their team, but they've still got a game against VCU, Dayton, Duquesne, who played them pretty well last time around, and George Mason. George Mason and Dayton were both on the road, so I wouldn't be surprised if they lose one of those down the stretch.
Yeah, I really want to pick SLU here, but I think I'm going Mizzou to split with Arkansas. Wow. And the reason for that is because we've seen with Missouri, they seem to play up to the top teams in the conference. Now, they also play down to the bottom teams in the conference, but they at least play up to them. So I could see where on their home court, they're able to really give Calipari's squad a test and beat them once. For SLU, I think you're right. I mean, they've got some of the better teams left on the A-10 in their schedule. I could see where they drop one more compared to Missouri, where they can just split 2.
Yeah, going with SLU by just a tad in this instance, because I'm looking squarely at the regular season finale. You are on the road, right, against George Mason. George Mason not messing around this season, 21-5 at this juncture. There could be a lot for which to play conference-wise at that point, but I do think that Mizzou in one instance there, specifically at home, has a chance to make it a game and prevail there.
All right, let's get to these from the text line from the 314. More likely to happen, Illinois reaches the Final Four or SLU reaches the Sweet 16?
I'm going to say more likely Illinois gets to the Final Four. I'm going to believe in my squad. They are one of the best teams in the country. For SLU, if they do lose another game potentially, which we just talked about, they might be running into a 2-seed that could actually be Illinois. That could prevent them from getting to the Sweet 16. Or a 1, yeah, potentially if they fall to the 8 or 9 line.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Illinois as well. I think they're one of the top 5 teams in the country. I've been saying this for 3 months now. So basically, since that, I would say like the Texas Tech game was the first time we really saw it. And then you add in what they did against Tennessee, Mizzou. Like, you really started to see this in December of, all right, this team's going to be special.
Yeah.
Give me Illinois in Indianapolis, because in the last couple of weeks alone, guys, we've seen the number 1 Arizona fall twice. We have seen the 2nd-ranked Cougars of Houston go down. Everybody is susceptible in that area, in that space. You can't tell me that the Fighting Illini lag behind a lot of those teams. And at this point in time, you are now seeing the physicality or lack thereof for SLU, rotation issues. They're being exposed. What if you get a really physical team early on in the tournament? Spells trouble.
Yeah. From the 314, more likely, which of these 2025 non-playoff teams are the most likely to win their division in 2026? The Mets, the Braves, the Astros, or the Rangers? Which of those 4 teams is most likely to win their respective division in 2026? Mets, Braves, Astros, or Rangers?
I would go Mets.
That would be my
don't
pick as well.
think the Rangers or Astros can beat the Mariners. I think that team's too good. I think they're going to win the West. The East is wide open. I mean, and I've even been public. I don't really like the Mets offseason. I think they could win the East, though. The Braves are already dealing. They just announced one of their pitchers is undergoing surgery and going to be put on the 60-day. I think it was either Schwellenbach was undergoing the procedure or the other guy that got hurt. I can't remember his name. Either way, they're already down 2 pitchers going on the 60-day IL. So that's a blow to them and a team that doesn't have a ton of pitching depth.
Schwellenbach is on the 60-day.
He did, and he underwent surgery today to remove a loose body part in his elbow. So... and so is Hunter Waldrop. So both guys are undergoing the same procedure, it sounds like. The Mets, I don't like their roster, but the Phillies are kind of old, and their rotation, we'll see what Wheeler looks like when he gets back, and they lost Suarez. I could see where the Mets win this division. We look at them and go, that's not a great baseball team, but somebody had to win the NL East.
Let's have some fun. The NL East is very gettable, but I could envision a scenario, guys, in which you have the Mariners not suffer extreme regression, but maybe come back to the pack a little bit out west, obviously still qualifying for the playoffs. I like Texas, honestly, as a sneaky team in that division. I like the consistency. I like the makeup of the lineup. I think adding Nimmo to that mix, honestly, it all depends on whether you get another season a la 2025 from Jacob deGrom in the rotation, right? That's the difference to me.
From Indibor We Trust, more likely Florida or Bama is crowned SEC champion this year. I go Florida. I just think they're a better team.
Yeah, I would too. Bama doesn't really have, since they lost their NBA center, they don't have the size in the middle now. I would go Florida as well. I think they're better all around.
Gators are predictable, and that's a good thing, right, in this example, because with Alabama, you simply never know from night to night, especially on the defensive end. And over the weekend, I'll tell you a team that I am staying far away from, the team that Florida defeated head-to-head, Kentucky. Nope, no, under no circumstances whatsoever. I'm not picking that team to win around in March.
Kentucky's weird, man. They had a really good stretch there for about a month, and then they ran into Florida, looked ugly, and then was it yesterday they lose to Georgia? Like, I just don't know how to make heads or tails of what that team is and what they're going to be once we get into the tournament. I wouldn't want to play them, but I also certainly wouldn't want to bet on them. If I'm another fan base, I have no interest in playing against Kentucky because they can beat anybody. Yeah. They can also lose to anybody. So
they remind me
classic nightmare matchup.
Last year's Illinois team, where like when things would click, you'd go, man, they look like they could beat anybody. And then you'd watch the nights where they don't play well, and you go, they could lose to anybody.
Other than Aberdeen, you have no clue what you're getting offensively night to night. Frankly, people talk about Missouri not having a plan offensively. Look at Kentucky. It's almost as bad.
Yeah, it's really ugly. And they've turned it around. and they're going to make the tournament. They're not going to have to fire their coach now, so that's a plus. But it has not been the high-level season that I think a lot of people were anticipating from that group. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Typically, there's a pretty obvious answer to the question, who is the most indispensable Cardinals player heading into the upcoming season? I don't know if I feel that way right now. We'll give you our early thoughts on it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Tune in all week as the morning after broadcast live from Cardinals spring training in Jupiter, Florida. Tim, Doug, Martin, and Jackson are talking with players and coaches and keeping you up to date on all things Redbirds and Roger Dean Stadium. Don't miss TMA live from spring training all week. Brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. Injury happens, regeneration works. Same-day pain relief at healthcareevolution.com.
Hey, it's BK. It is time to unlock your inner champion with my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today and all that they have to offer at victorymenshealth.com. When you get over there, you can read about some of their services that they provide. Erectile dysfunction issues, they got that. Weight loss goals that you're trying to meet, they can help you do that. Or low testosterone. If you want to get those levels checked, you feel like you don't have the same energy that you used to, your workouts aren't having the same results that they once did. It could be due to low testosterone, and they can check out where your levels are at over at Victory Men's Health. So book that first appointment today. It's an incredibly easy process. It's online at victorymenshealth.com. When you get over there, you book that first appointment online and click that tab, Book Now. Put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then tell them what it is for you to unlock your inner champion. They've done this for me. They can do it for you as well. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area in O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and Town and Country. Check them out today, Victory Men's Health, and online at victorymenshealth.com.
missed the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with the voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle, shop Bellman in Troy. Online at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Rams spoils SLU's undefeated conference season. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your SportsCenter update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night in Kingston, Rhode Island handed the Billikens their first A-10 loss, 81-76. Senior Robbie Avila's 21-point outing ultimately went for naught. St. Louis had captured 18 straight games. Speaking of setbacks, Mizzou hopes to avoid another SECL when it hosts number 19 Vanderbilt at 8 p.m. Additional marquee matchups include Arkansas, Alabama, and Illinois USC. Olympic men's hockey, Canada eliminates Czechia 4-3 OT style as knockout round action intensifies. Jordan Binnington made 21 saves. Team USA facing Sweden shortly. This SportsCenter update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. So every year we do our 20 most important Cardinals list for the upcoming season. We'll see if we're going to do that this year. It might be closer to like a top 10 list.
Whoa. Come on, man. You can do 20. I believe in your abilities.
Do you think we could do 20?
Yeah.
Can you modify
do
it
20.
to be top 20 players in the system?
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
That might be the move. Is
No,
the
yeah,
20 most important Cardinals
20.
organizational
Yeah.
players,
I had
not
to do-
just for 2026, but beyond.
Broaden the scope.
If I had to do 20 like on the actual roster, I don't think I could do it. That would be maybe a top 5.
That's normally
list.
what we do is guys that are going to impact
But
this year.
To be fair, sometimes we have a rookie or a guy that's in the minor leagues that's down there. For some reason, I'm thinking there was somebody there
I don't
last
think
year.
we've ever had somebody that is beyond like AAA and like close. I think every player we've ever had on the list has been on the 40-man.
Yeah, maybe not Winn. Winn may not have been one.
I think he was because the previous year he got the cup of coffee.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that year, but I think that year we had expectations for
he
him.
wasn't going to be on. So yeah, it's going to be a different kind of year. We knew that. They have not only said that publicly, their actions have followed that as well. So, most indispensable player for 2026. Who is it? And how high up that list do you read? Who is it?
What was your other caveat going to be?
I was going to say, like, how many guys are even in that top category?
Oh.
Because I think there is kind of a bucket of players to choose from. I'm not sure any one player really stands out to me. Do you have somebody, T-Bone, that you'd say, like, no doubt about it, definitively, if this guy goes down, they're bleeped?
Yeah, I don't think there's one guy definitively that fits into that. Because I don't think there's anybody you typically would look at this and say they're bleeped if they lose them. That won't be the case for them this year since they're rebuilding. I thought Victor Scott kind of fell into this, though, a little bit. And the reason I say that, I don't know who plays center field if Scott went down. And, again, this is a low clearing bar.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah. Are you not serious?
Victor Scott, the most indispensable Cardinal for 2026.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Because he's a Gold Glove caliber center fielder.
Okay.
And he's a guy that a lot of hype is around as someone that they want to try and build around. And I don't think they've got a center fielder in the system that you could throw Church out there or maybe Sajasi out there. But I think they don't have anybody internally right now that you could look at and say they're a center fielder for them that they could get good returns on for the near future. It's why I almost look at Scott and say that guy might be one of them that you look at and say indispensable, not to your typical definition of it, but for a rebuilding team, I think he kind of falls into this category.
I like it. It's not the direction I thought you were going to go in.
Who'd you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say like Masyn Winn or Ivan Herrera.
I thought about Winn too. Herrera I didn't think about. Twofold for Herrera. one, you've got a bunch of catching prospects that are in the system that can play the position, and I'm not even sure he's going to be catching the full year, to be honest. And two, his bat would be a huge miss, but your hope is that you've got other guys that can, like Weatherholt, your hope would be able to be there at some point.
Who's your second best right-handed bat?
Winn? Is it Winn?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the correct. I mean, maybe Joel Pozo. In all seriousness.
Yeah, off the bench, yeah.
So that's why I think you can make a pretty strong case for him. I'll go ahead and make a case for somebody else, and it's twofold. One, positionally, I don't know. After having so many guys that could play this position, I don't know really how many you actually have right now, which is why Joel Pozo is playing there. Two, I just think his bat is so valuable. Alec Burleson might be the answer here. He hits for average. He hits for power. He gets on base at a good clip. He is, like, technically speaking, a quote-unquote veteran for this team. And if he goes down, I guess Joel Pozo's your starting first baseman.
I think you either do him. He hasn't got reps yet this year. If they had to in a pinch, they could put Gorman over there. I mean, he played a little bit last year, if my memory serves correct. And then you free up third base for, say, JC or Weatherholt.
I certainly don't feel great about that.
No, I don't either. But as we've seen across baseball, first basemen aren't valued. And that's the other reason why I think, like, if Burley went down, and look, I promise, hope that doesn't happen, you can get away by putting someone else over there at first base. I mean, we've seen that teams just don't value that position. And last year, they're able to train Contreras to do it on the fly. So I get it on Burley. I just think you could put anybody there and you'd still be fine.
Yeah, maybe until we see what was his name? Jose Martinez experience looks like. And then you're like, whew, not everybody can play first base.
True.
Most people can play first base. That guy could not.
Well, it's kind of sad that we've reached this point, but on how many guys can you truly rely on this roster when opening day rolls around against the Rays, and then you project it for the entirety of a 162-game schedule and say, I know that I'm getting a minimum 140 games, 20 home runs, 70 runs batted in, an average lurking somewhere between 265 and 290. We want to have Herrera plus that, but can you bank on anybody else? I truly don't think you can. Other than Burleson, that's what I'm saying. So he is more of an obvious candidate than we would have envisioned.
Yeah, for me, he'd be the guy. I would pinpoint him and say, I think if you miss out on that bat in the middle of your order, positionally, I don't think you really have anybody that can step up to his spot. In the batting order, I don't know. So let's say Newt is healthy, right? You've got Newt at the top of the order, most likely. Probably Masyn Winn 2, J.J. Weatherholt 3, which is asking a lot of him immediately, but maybe he's ready to go for that. And then Herrera 4. I have no idea who bats fit. I guess Gorman.
It'd be Gorman. If you wanted a righty back-to-back, it'd be Walker.
Really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick. So both from a offensive perspective and position perspective, Burleson would probably be the guy that I would pinpoint. When you look at the rotation, they're just all so similar in what I would project out of them that I don't think any one player is irreplaceable. They don't have somebody quite to the same level in the bullpen this year as Ryan Helsley. I also think they're deeper in the bullpen than they have been in some of the recent seasons. Last year, they were pretty good there as well. They've got a ton of catchers, as you mentioned, T-Bone. Outfield, I could see how you get yourself there, but nobody really stands out to me as this is your dude. I think I'm going to go with Alec Burleson. I think that's my guy.
And I think what you said there about how thin it gets quickly for the Cardinals, this is why when we did more likely to happen, I said I would take the side of more likely they could lose 100 games, because it's only going to take an injury or two to this lineup to really put the pressure on them.
That's a good point.
Because if you lose Burleson, like we're talking about in this scenario, you have to hit Walker or Gorman in that 5 spot. And if, something happens, like Herrera takes a foul ball off the mask and misses a little bit of time, now, who's hitting cleanup even in this lineup? They just don't have the lineup, especially this year. If you lose guys in the rotation, I agree with you. A lot of those guys are similar, but you can look at the depth behind them, right? Especially as we get into the season, you're going to have potentially Quinn Matthews, Bryson Motts, potentially the loser in the rotation battle between Palante, Fitz, or Dobbins as guys that can come in and replace. The 40-man is littered with bullpen arms that they can just continue to go through the Memphis shuttle. You lose one guy in this lineup, there is no reinforcement potentially coming, and it gets very thin very quickly.
And on that lineup, I was looking at the Zips projections earlier today over on Fangraphs, and don't look at them. It's not a fun thing to do because they're not overly optimistic about your Cardinals. They have one player projected for more than 20 home runs. It's Nolan Gorman, projected for 21 home runs on the season for the Cardinals. I wanted to look at where they had Ivan Herrera, because to me, he's the one that I'm most excited to watch this year offensively for the Cardinals, more so even than J.J. Weatherholt. I'm really curious to see what year 2 of an everyday Ivan Herrera looks like. This is where we've typically seen a bit of a drop-off. Jordan Walker, really good year 1, drop-off. Dylan Carlson, really good year 1, then we saw the drop-off take place. We've seen this a lot, where guys will have a breakout campaign and then game over. How does Herrera respond to that first year? How do pitchers pitch him? Can he make those necessary adjustments? I feel like we saw it a lot last year in season. What is it going to look like as they now have a full off season to adjust to him as well, and they are able to go through all of that data? Well, over on Fangraphs, they have him projected to hit 275. Sounds great. Get on base 36% of the time. Couldn't ask for a whole lot more. That's spectacular. That's like Lars Nootbaar levels of on base. That's great. And slug 430. That would be a little disappointing compared to our hopes for what he could be in 2026. They have him playing in 115 games, hitting 14 home runs, and by the way, stealing 8 bases. If he could be a 10 to 15 stolen base guy, that'd be pretty awesome for Ivan Herrera, maybe close to 20 homers. T-Bone, what do you think his power projection should look like for the upcoming year? Because a year ago, I think people forget he hit 19 home runs and he only played in 105 games.
Yeah.
What kind of power are you anticipating out of Ivan Herrera this upcoming year?
I'm hoping he's going to be a 25 to 30 home run guy. 30 might be on a little bit of a stretch for him. I think he's definitely got 25 homer power in him. I mean, you mentioned 19 home runs last year in 107 games. There's definitely more there. And you also brought up the fact that if you look back and kind of split his season up month by month, teams kind of figured him out in July and August, and he really turned it back on in September and was able to make those adjustments and get back to go back on the schneid. I think 25 home runs is kind of what I would say is where I think he can be power-wise, and he'll be able to add some more doubles to that as well. Now, the one thing that I have concerns about, and this is where, again, I've brought this up when we talk about putting him back behind home plate, how much is that going to wear on him? You know, that's the one thing that I have concerns about is if he starts taking those, or he will start taking foul tips off the legs, you catch a baseball weird in the hand, you start to impact your hands a little bit, your body just doesn't feel good as a catcher. Is that going to sap some of the power back for him and prevent him from getting to what I think is his ceiling? But 25 home runs is kind of where I think he should be around this season.
That's my hope. That's my expectation. And if he's able to get there, I think you've got a future 3-hole hitter for you. A future 5-hole hitter at minimum for you. If he's not, that's where you could see, all right, maybe it is kind of a 5 or a 6-hole type of a guy. Yeah. And I do wonder what that means for him positionally as well. If he can't stick a catcher and he doesn't have that kind of power that we're talking about, where does he land? Where does he best fit for you long term? Because as a first baseman, that's good, but it's not quite the power that you expect out of a corner infield position. It's definitely not the power you expect from an everyday primary DH spot. If that's basically all the value he has is what he brings as his bat, it will be very interesting to see, positionally, where does he fit in, and power-wise, how does he project for 2026? It was the one thing that we didn't really know a whole lot about coming into his big league career. Last year opened our eyes to what the potential could be there, and now in year 2, we'll find out, can he make good on that? Can he go from 19 homers in 100-ish games to 25 or 30? Can he carry that for a full season? Look at Nolan Gorman. The answer was no. If you're looking at some of these other guys that we've seen in the past, the answer was also no. Could Herrera be the start of maybe a new trend for young Cardinals players that don't just have a breakout campaign, but then follow it up with another step beyond that gets them to, all right, now you're consideration for an all-star appearance. You're in consideration for a contender batting in the middle of the order, just putting together that kind of production. It's what the Cardinals have been missing. Hopefully, they have finally developed somebody that can be in that line of thinking. Coming up in about 10 minutes or so, the Cardinals' rebuild is almost exclusively about their pitching. I thought there was a pretty candid and interesting response from Oli Marmol earlier today that we need to talk about. We'll get into that coming up here just a little bit. Junk Drawer coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
College basketball is on ESPN. Tonight, Connecticut and Creighton tip off at 6. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. Returning to the Dome at America's Center Saturday, April 4th. Watch the premier riders in the world as well as the rising stars as they put it all on the line for the coveted title of Supercross Champion. Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live at Monster Energy AMA Supercross.
Get all the info and register to win a free 4-pack of tickets now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Did you see the latest on Tony Clark?
Yeah. It was something.
What is this guy doing, man?
I don't know. It's not the guy you want leading the Players Association when he was.
Maybe the better question is, what isn't he doing?
Good point.
Fair.
For those unfamiliar, Tony Clark was the head of the Major League Baseball Players Association. He resigned yesterday amid controversy. He's got a couple of things going on. One of them, he's being investigated by the Eastern District of New York for mishandling, an alleged mishandling of money within the PA. We then later last night found out that's actually not why he resigned from the MLBPA, which makes sense because this had been known for a long time. This wasn't a surprise that he was being investigated by this Eastern District Court. No, according to multiple stories, including Joel Sherman of the New York Post, the end of his tenure came because he was having an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law, who also works for the MLBPA.
Yikes. Yeah, I didn't have that on my bingo card for his resignation yesterday.
I'm trying to imagine a worse 48 hours. So, this dude is being investigated for some significant issues that took place. He has risen to a seriously high level within maybe the single most powerful union in all of professional sports. He is at the highest ranking position within that union. He is paid handsomely for what he does within that union. It is a public profile position. There are a lot of perks that come from said position. He's allegedly misusing some of their money and also hired his sister-in-law to work for him. And then, according to these allegations, is having what appears to be some level of an affair with her, allegedly. And then it not only gets out, but it is stated as the reason for basically your firing from the MLBPA. What do you think Thanksgiving's going to be like this year at the Clark household?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's not going to the family Thanksgiving this year.
He may be going to Denny's.
Yeah.
Sister-in-law?
Yeah, that's not great.
Dude.
When I started to read that yesterday, Brett just peeked behind the curtain. Bradford and I were in the office podcasting the show, getting stuff done on socials, and I saw this news come out, and I started to read it, and I get to the part where it is for allegedly having an affair with, and then Bradford's like, oh yeah, people get caught on that a lot nowadays, and then I go with his sister-in-law. Bradford goes, whoa, surprised him completely.
We just went next level.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think you could have a worse 48 hours.
Somebody on the text line says, guys, is this his brother's wife or his wife's sister? Great question. I am actually not sure the answer to that question, though, because it has only been reported, as far as I've seen, that it is the sister-in-law. I'm not sure which side of things this is coming from. So I can't answer that question, but it is a good one.
Let's see if I can clear this up. Does he have any siblings? Is the question I'm going to see if I can figure out here on the fly.
This is so much more complicated than that Ime Udoka saga.
Oh, yeah.
That was something else, too.
He does have a brother, so it's possible that it is the brother's wife. His brother played college basketball at Long Beach State in Washington. Greg Clark.
It's worse if it's his brother's wife, right? I don't know, man.
Actually,
I don't know.
Is there really one that's better than the other?
No, they're both awful.
Yeah,
like truly awful. You know what? It's a scumbag move either way. I'm actually going to take that back. I actually think it's worse if it's your wife's sister.
I can't pick a side on this one. I can't.
Yeah.
I think it's worse if it's your wife's sister, because you chose your wife. You grew up with your brother. That's blood, right? And so that's
why I think that one would be worse.
That could cause a real fight. There's a lot that comes out of that. You fell in love with your wife and chose her and decided to get married to her, and that's her sister, man. That's messed up.
I see. I would almost lean the side of the brother's worse. You can pick your friends, you can pick your wife, but you can't pick your family.
Pick your poison.
Yeah,
Last 48 hours.
Awful, but I don't know. I think I would lean the brother one. It would be worse.
Oh, wow.
Just listen, any kind of an affair is terrible. Any kind of an affair is terrible. Could you, if you're gonna do it,
not do it with?
Could you maybe not choose somebody that is related to either your wife or your brother?
Yeah.
That would probably be the better way. All of this is alleged, but he did get let go from the PA.
I don't think that's a hard ask. I really don't.
Yeah. What a scumbag.
Yeah.
I can't believe they let this guy run the union.
For as long as they did, too. Yeah. It wasn't as though this was like a new hire.
Yeah. Because
he didn't come out of nowhere. I think he's been there for a decade.
Yeah. When did he get hired as the main guy? 2010. Oh, no. That was when he was in charge of relations. He's been involved in negotiations dating back to 2002.
In 25 years.
Yeah, I can't see exactly when he took over as the
Now,
lead
it
guy.
is fair to say a lot of the time you don't know what's going on in people's personal lives, right? Like I work with T-Bone and Alex every single day, and I talk to them as much as I talk to anybody. Man, I don't know a lot of what's going on in your personal life away from the radio station, nor should I. That's your own stuff, right? And you don't know a lot of what's going on in my personal life. Again, nor should you. It's my personal stuff. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that was not known behind the scenes about this, for example. But some of the other shady stuff he was doing allegedly within the MLBPA, that's the kind of stuff. Ugh. Yeah. And just generally speaking, I don't think he's done a good job.
No.
As the head of the PA. I think that they have consistently gone in the wrong direction. And there have been a few of these CBAs where they were just fighting for clearly the wrong things. I remember, I think it was 2 CBAs ago, they were like, hey, we need extra spots on the bus. And it was like the quality of life stuff that they were talking about. Like a chef within their clubhouse, that kind of stuff is what they were really trying to get done. And the owners were like, yeah, that's fine. We'll take percentage points. Like we'll take the extra revenue streams that are going to come our way. We'll get you the chef, like we'll get you an extra day off over the course of the 162 game season. That's fine by us. We'll take all of this other stuff where the money is going to be coming into our hands instead of yours.
16 years he's been in charge of the PA.
Whatever you do, Tanner, just remove relations from the conversation altogether. Okay, buddy?
Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters. Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joins us at 1:30 to discuss what he saw in that Canada game. What an unbelievable finish for Team Canada. Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joins us at 1:30 to discuss it. But next, the Cardinals rebuild. We always knew what this was all about. Oli Marmol spelled it out for us, though, earlier today. We'll let you hear that next here on 101 ESPN.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. And the latest episode has us turning our attention towards a period of history that barely needs exaggeration. The earliest days of the automobile. It's incredible how history itself can feel unbelievable once you strip away the myths and look at what actually happened. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we dig in on the chaotic, experimental era of the invention of the car. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts, locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
Hey, it's BK. It is time for you to check out Underdog. The app is easy to use, and you could win as much as $5,000 times your cash. It is super easy to use, and it doesn't matter that the NFL season is over. You've still got college basketball, the NBA, you've got curling, you've got the Olympic hockey games as well. You can do all of those. Make your plays today over on the Underdog app. For me, I'm going over to the app right now, checking out this Mizzou game for tonight. I've got Mark Mitchell higher than 24.5 points plus rebounds. I've got Jaden Stone to make at least 2 3-pointers this evening, and Tyler Tanner, one of the best guards in the country at forcing turnovers. I think he's going to do exactly that. Higher than 1.5 steals tonight against Mizzou. Put those 3 plays together, 5-1 odds over on the Underdog app. Download the app today. Use our promo code BKO. You'll score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays. Win money. Must be 18 or older. Present in Missouri. Terms do apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms. _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncbgambling.org.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
This Cardinals rebuild is almost exclusively about the pitching side of things. We've known that for a really long time, but Oli Marmol spelled it out earlier today as he was joining TMA alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. TMA live at Cardinal Spring Training in Jupiter all week this week. It is brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. If you haven't caught any of their interviews live, check them out on their podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Those are all sponsored by Schaefer Door Company. They had Oli Marmol on earlier today. Thought it was interesting. They read a question from the audience. I'm going to give you the full answer because all of it I think is relevant context. Here's what he had to say to one of the listeners.
All right, how about this one? I think you'll enjoy this because obviously it's intended to get you going. Marmol had top caliber players: Gray, Contreras, Goldie, Arenado, Donovan, Burleson. He had talent. He got the bare minimum from him. That's some evil Calvin. All right, what are you going to say to that? Because you know he wanted to get you. There it is. He got it read. What are you going to say to something like that?
Hey, Calvin. You only listed one pitcher here, bud. Okay? And you need 5 of them in a rotation to compete. So although you do have some hitters that are some big-name hitters, if you look at those years, we had trouble on the other side of the baseball at times, right? So
23.
You need to be able to defend the baseball well, but also pitch it well, and you need the combination of those things. So
when you look at Milwaukee, some of the years that they had some really good bullpens, some really good starting rotation guys. So this is where it's easy to pinpoint and say you had these 4 position players. Why didn't the whole team do well? But there's more to it than that. So I appreciate the question for sure. But you're absolutely off on this. And this, what you just mentioned, is just straight stupid.
Nobody wins without pitching.
And
you can't do it.
That's where you get to the bottom of what's really happening here. So, yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong. It could have been done with a little less tone.
I like Ollie.
You probably appreciated that. I like Ollie too, but a little less tone could have been used there.
That was relaxed, natural Ollie. Come on, 30 minutes in his element.
He's not wrong, though. I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, and you heard Tim mention the year that it really collapsed in on them was 2023. I mean, everything just fell apart to where you had no pitcher at the big league level that was really performing outside of Montgomery, who they traded. And then you didn't have reinforcements coming. And that's what they're trying to do now. They're not only trying to get it right at the major league level with the arms, but making sure that they've got that infrastructure to where if someone goes down, they have an answer. Unlike last year, where if someone went down, guys, who was going to be the starter for them if they lost somebody last year? They didn't know. We didn't know because there was nobody that was ready to go at the major league level had they lost a starter.
I mean, they stuck with Eric Fetty as long as they did because of that.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's why they ended up in this rebuild, because we've seen teams, I mean, you can point to the Brewers as an example. They don't really have a star on the offensive side unless you want to make the argument for Yelich, which I would. But if you don't want to go with that side.
I was like, did you forget?
No, I remember. I still think Yelich has a star in him. But if you don't in that case, like you don't, BK, which is a fair argument, they're able to get to the playoffs. It's not off of an offense because they don't have a superstar. They've got a bunch of good complementary pieces.
Correct.
The thing that the Cardinals were kind of able to do last year, there wasn't a star on their offensive side of the ball. They had a bunch of good complementary pieces that did just enough. They didn't have the pitching to uplift them, and that's where it really starts.
The Cardinals are 21st in Major League Baseball in starting pitching ERA since the start of the 2021 season. 21st. That's not sustainable. More damning, the Cardinals have had 11 starting pitchers since 2021 throw at least 120 innings. T-Bone, out of those 11 pitchers as starters, this is just their usage as a starter, out of those 11 pitchers, how many of them do you think had a sub-4 ERA?
11 guys to do it. What year?
120 or more innings since the start of the 2021 season. So this is not individual seasons. This is overall what they were able to do.
I think Montgomery did it. Is he the only one that would have done it? Because Gray would be close. I'm not sure Gray would. I'm going to go 1. I'm thinking it's Jordan Montgomery.
It's 1. Jordan Montgomery is the only Cardinal starter since 2021 to throw at least 120 innings and have a sub-4 ERA. Second on the list is Jack Flaherty with a 4.03. Third on the list is Sonny Gray with a 4.07. And fourth is Adam Wainwright with a 4.18. They just haven't produced the starting pitching. I think every bit as interesting. Jack Flaherty was produced from within, but other than that, the top guys from the Cardinals since 2021 in terms of their ERA, Jordan Montgomery, trade, Sonny Gray, signing, Adam Wainwright, who's been here for 100 years, Kyle Gibson, signing, Andre Palante, who people want shipped out of town on the next flight, and then Miles Michaelis signing, Dakota Hudson, again, people wanted him out, Steven Matz signing, Eric Fetty trade, then finally, the worst of the bunch, Matthew Liberatore, 4.87. They haven't produced pitching, man. It's so simple. And when they go through this year, 2, 3, however long stretch of time, there were some talk about their position players and how much they had struggled to develop them. I think all of that was eyewash. I don't think it's real. They've developed a lot of good position players. They haven't developed the star, but very few teams do. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Their lack of pitching pipeline, development from internal, that prevents you from going out and making other moves. Think about what Jordan Montgomery costs you. It's Harrison Bader at $10 million, who's a good player. Think about what Sonny Gray costs you. It's $30 million a year. Kyle Gibson, $12 a year. Miles Michaelis, $18 a year. Steven Matz, $11 a year. Eric Fetty, $10 million bucks. Going out and getting Lance Lynn, $11 million. The money they're investing into this rotation to mask over the issues that they had from their own pipeline, it's tens of millions of dollars. And over the course of this 5-year stretch, it's more than $100 million. That's how you can go out there if you're able to produce your own Kyle Gibson, your own Eric Fetty, your own Miles Michaelis. You're saving $30 million a year, man. And now you can use that to pay for a position player. So it's just not a sustainable way to win. They clearly weren't able to do it, and now they're paying the price for it, finally.
Yeah, and like you look at some of the teams that are contenders, they, for the most part, typically go out and do most of that signing up at the top end of the rotation. They try and develop it from within. Like Milwaukee doesn't have anybody that's on the roster externally that you could point at and say they're top of the rotation. You look at like the Dodgers, for example. The reason they survived last year was internal pitching. It wasn't based on all the money they threw at the rotation, which was smart. All those guys were hurt. Snell missed most of the year. Sasaki missed most of the year. It was guys that were coming up through the minor leagues to help them kind of backfill it. It's why a team like Atlanta is starting to get in trouble because they have to spend money on that rotation and they're not developing it and they keep getting injured. So it's the thing that constantly is what drives organizations towards success is pitching.
Just looked this up because I was curious. You mentioned the Dodgers. I said it previously. Cardinals had one pitcher throw at least 120 innings with a sub-4 ERA since the start of the 2021 season. Starting pitchers. How many do you think the Dodgers had?
Oh, boy. Is it double figures?
It's 7.
Oh, man, that's close. I was going to say like 10, right at 10.
Yeah, they had 7. Out of curiosity, I'll go ahead and look this up for the Phillies. They have
I bet they had
4.
5. Okay.
It's 4. Ranger Suarez, Jesus Luzardo, Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola just on the outside looking in. I think every Cardinals fan would have signed up for the last 5 years of Aaron Nola.
Because of last year, what dragged them down. Out of curiosity, look at Milwaukee, because I would bet Milwaukee's at about 5 guys that's done it too.
All right, let's check out Brewers since 2021.
You got to think Burns, Woodruff, Peralta would have done it.
8.
Holy
8
crap.
starters have had a sub-4 ERA while throwing at least 120 innings for the Brewers since 2021. Woodruff at a 2.7, Burns at a 2.9, Priester with a 2.9, Peralta 3.2, Wade Miley 3.3, Tobias Myers at a 4.4, Eric Lauer at a 3.9, and Jose Quintana at a 3.95. Adrian Hauser, by the way, at a 4.05 is 9th on their list. Would have been good for 2nd on the Cardinals list.
Oh.
There you go. What's the difference? What's the difference between the Cardinals and the Brewers over the last 5 years?
Pitching pipeline.
Just waves hands. Just look at this. That's it. That is the difference between the two organizations and why one team has done a whole hell of a lot of winning and the other team has done a whole hell of a lot of failing to live up to their expectations.
Yep. Everything starts with pitching. It is the thing that is the lifeblood of all these organizations. You can't really point to an organization that doesn't have pitching that is able to get by. I can point to teams that don't have an offense that get by. Like, look at the Padres from last year. They have big names. Their offense didn't hit. What got them to the playoffs? Their pitching. Look at the Brewers. Their offense was good. It wasn't great. You know what got them there? Pitching. You can't point to teams.
Reds were able to pull away from the rest of the poo-poo platter that was the middle
Exactly.
of the National League, not because they had a great offense, but because they had a few pitchers that were pretty good.
What killed the Mets down the stretch? Their starting staff had nobody. They had nobody that could pitch, and they turned to like Noah McLean to come in and try and save them towards the home stretch of the season. So pitching is the lifeblood of an organization. If you're going to contend in Major League Baseball, it starts on the mound.
Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joins us in 15 minutes. We'll give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to Zach Bryan. That's coming up on Saturday, March the 7th at the Dome later on this hour as well. Coming up next, time for some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
101 is your home for Blues hockey. Check out either the 101 mobile app or 101ESPN.com for your chance to win a signed puck autographed by Blues defenseman Colton Parayko. Get entered to win that Colton Parayko signed puck right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Big news yesterday in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes restructured his deal, creating about $40-some-odd million in cap space for the Chiefs. This is not a real news story. It happens every year. The entire reason they did the contracts the way that they did was to provide future flexibility. They needed it. They were not in the cap hell that people said they were. It's tight, don't get me wrong, but that's... The news in the NFL was that Mahomes reworked his deal. People are wondering, like, why do you do that? Just flexibility. They needed it. They now have it. The real Chiefs news was what happened today with Rashee Rice. And if you have not seen it yet, TMZ Sports had the report earlier this morning. His ex-girlfriend is alleging in a civil case that there was a pattern of abuse over multiple years between from Rashee toward his ex-girlfriend. She is alleging that has all taken place. He would potentially be under the personal conduct policy for this. He would be seen as a repeat offender if anything comes of it. My guess is the league will do its own investigation. We'll see. I really wonder if we've seen the end of Rashee Rice in a Chiefs uniform. This is expected to be the final year of his current rookie contract. I wonder how this plays into their plans in the draft, T-Bone. They're number 9 overall. There's a few wide receivers that are expected to be top 15 picks. There's Mekhi Lemon from USC. There's Cardinal Tate from Ohio State. And then Jordan Tyson from Arizona State as well. Wonder if that ends up being the direction that the Chiefs are forced into now that you're very uncertain about the future of Rashee Rice.
Yeah, and especially since as you mentioned, though they do have some cap relief with Mahomes, it's still going to be fairly tight on what you're trying to do. And they've got a bunch of needs on the roster. So do you go cheaper in that wide receiver room with Rice being on that final year and who knows of his availability to try and upgrade? Or do you go like a Tyreek Hill, who we had talked about? But Tyreek Hill's still going to cost you probably, $10 million maybe to go out there on a quote-unquote pillow deal for a receiver. And it's not a very deep wide receiver class when you look at the free agency. I think Evans is available. I would just bet on him being back with Tampa Bay.
I wanted to ask you about him. Put a pin in that.
Oh, okay. I won't bring him up anymore. But it's just not a very deep class at wide receiver either. It's a lot of offensive linemen, running backs. So it is interesting to see if they can if they can get an elite playmaker. I think it will kind of play into their plans, especially if they are thinking about potentially moving on from Rice. You have to think about it. And if you are, you got to look at probably the draft as that avenue.
All right, let's stick with the Mike Evans side of things. The story overnight was that, hey, he might be open to going somewhere else. Now, this may be a negotiation tactics. It's entirely possible the Bucs are not coming to him with the contract offer that he's looking for. The Bucs also, though, took a wide receiver early last year in the NFL draft, and they did pay Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans is 31 years old. He has had some injury issues, especially last year. Maybe they're ready to move on, and they need to go in their separate ways. The Bucs don't have a ton of money to operate with this offseason either. Where would you like to see Evans go if he does decide, you know what, it's time to go somewhere else? So I've got a couple spots that I think make a lot of sense for him.
Let me ask you this first on him.
Sure.
He's a 2 at this point in his career. You still think he's a 1 for a team?
I think he's a 2 ideally, but I think he can play the role of a 1 the way that Stephon Diggs this past year did for the Patriots, for example.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is, like, I kind of like the fit in, like, Buffalo, for example. New England, another one that I really like. But he'd be the 1 there. And I don't know if that's where he's at still in his career. Those were the first 2 that immediately popped into my head because they're going to need some wide receiver help this offseason is Buffalo and New England. I would put those as the 2 that I would kind of highlight now as like my favorite. The Raiders maybe would be interesting with Mendoza. You bring him in there, add to that offense for a weapon. I could see them maybe doing that. Those are the teams that kind of pop into my head at first glance.
Titans, number 1 on the list.
No, that's a good
All
one,
the
too.
money in the world. We've got a young quarterback. Let's give him a guy that can go up and get it. You know, Cam Ward, we need to have somebody to throw the ball to. Last year was a bunch of no-names out there. They've got $100 million in cap space.
Yeah.
Wow. They got to pay somebody, man. If you're telling me they paid Mike Evans a 2-year, $60 million contract, it's an overpay, but you're going to have to do that in order to get somebody to come take your money. He's a really good football player. I think he's probably a future Hall of Famer, is Mike Evans. Bring him in, give him the $30 million this year, guarantee like $10 million next year on the contract as well. So it's basically a 1-year, $40 million deal with an option for next season. Great. Sounds good. I think the Titans are a great landing spot for him. Another team that I think makes a lot of sense is the LA Chargers. They have a lot of cap space. They took their medicine last year in order to get their cap in a better spot. This year, it's basically wide open on their cap sheet. They got a few players, Rashawn Slater, Derwin James, Justin Herbert. They're making real money. Nobody else on their roster is, though. Nobody else is making more than 10. Could they go out there and make a move for a guy like Mike Evans? I think they could use another wide receiver. So those would be the two that immediately come to mind for me.
I love the LA destination. Hadn't really thought about that. When Tennessee would be great. Hasn't exactly worked out swimmingly with Calvin Ridley there. But the more you mention the Chargers, BK, and given the absolute lack of outside threats, guys who have been physical, who can still get down the field, you can dink it and dunk it to death. That's nice. Ladd McConkey, okay, great underneath. But as far as somebody setting up vertically, maybe Evans isn't the same guy, a 1 or even a 1A from a couple of years ago, the last time he was a free agent when he negotiated still that $35 million guarantee with the Bucs. But if you're talking about a 2-year package somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 altogether, sign me up. If you're Harbaugh and Herbert specifically, sign them up.
What about the Broncos, by the way? I wouldn't mind seeing another. They've got about $28 million in cap space going into the year. I don't know. I mean, you're going to have to pay Nix at some point, but you're about another year or two away from that. Denver could use another weapon for that offense for Bo Nix.
I agree.
I wouldn't mind seeing that if you could work the right deal there to get him to Denver.
Are you trusting Sutton, though, to take the jump there? A comparable-ish receiver?
No, that's why I think you need a second guy there. I wouldn't trust Sutton to make that next step.
So I think the thing with them, and I don't know which direction they want to go here, but your former Illinois wide receiver, what's his name again? Pat Bryant. I kind of like him as a outside wide receiver. If they're going to go in the direction of adding somebody, for them I would like more of like a Juwan Jennings, somebody that can play from the slot, or just drafting a guy this year to come in and play from the slot. I don't know fit-wise if Mike Evans is the kind of wide receiver they'll be looking for, because they've got a lot of those big-bodied guys that can line up outside. I would like to see them add some more potential for the underneath yards after catch monster, and that's not really his game.
Is that Shaheed? Shaheed's also a guy that he's more.
I think he makes more sense for them.
But he could make more sense in that role that you were just describing.
Yeah, I think he makes a lot more sense for what they potentially would like to add. Other thing that I wanted to get to here, Anthony Richardson is going to be a topic of conversation this offseason once again. His future's in doubt in Indianapolis for good reason. He's been terrible. And then he used the bands and broke his orbital bone. It hasn't gone well.
You know, sometimes it happens.
Listen, teams need quarterbacks. It's a really terrible offseason to need a quarterback.
They're not this desperate.
There's one team that is going to be able to draft Mendoza #1 overall. That's the Raiders. Anybody else that needs a quarterback this offseason, good luck, man. It's like Malik Willis and the potential to trade for one of Kyler Murray or Tua Tagovailoa. I think the Steelers are probably just going to bring back the corpse of Aaron Rodgers. Like it's desperate measures out there, man. Could you see a team doing the Justin Fields path with Anthony Richardson, where they say, hey, didn't work out for them, but maybe it could work out for us?
I don't think so.
Could Cleveland do this?
I think you'd rather just run it back with Shador and see what you got there.
Could the Jets do it?
Well, the Jets are a bad organization, so would I put it past the Jets? No. But I think what I was going to say, like you mentioned, Justin Fields, I think they're too smart. I don't think they would do it. I think their target's going to be like Mac Jones if they can try and lure him away from Sanford with a trade.
If Miami trades Tua?
No.
What about Arizona if they trade Kyler?
No.
Okay.
I think a well-run organization would not give him a flyer, even if you are a bad football team. He's just not a quarterback at the NFL, man. He can't read a defense, and that was before he fractured the orbital bone. And he's just to throw it deep and pray that you have a guy that comes down with it. I mean, he was awful awful when he played for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think anybody was going to give Justin Fields another opportunity except for a poorly run organization like the New York Jets. So I don't think he's getting an opportunity. I think he's going to have to settle for being a backup or a third-string quarterback somewhere else.
I don't even think Justin Fields is a comp here because at minimum, at least, Fields with the Bears had 3 full seasons under his belt. Now, you could have quibbled with his performance, no doubt about it, but he was there. He was in the starting position for 3 years. Anthony Richardson has a total of, 15 games altogether? We've seen nothing.
Well, we've seen some bad.
No, that's true.
We've seen a lot.
Yeah.
He didn't even have 15 games in Florida. 15 games altogether.
Was it 2 years ago he got the chance and it was just so bad? I remember BK talking about him as maybe he's a fantasy dark horse at quarterback.
Yeah.
He can run. He throws the ball deep. And I drank the Kool-Aid and drafted him in our league in about 4 weeks. And I was like, I can't do this. Guy's getting a point a game.
I've had some really bad takes on this show. When you do this for a living, you're going to be wrong more often than you're right. Right? Because we have to make predictions. It's part of the job. I said in that draft, I would have taken Anthony Richardson number 1 overall.
I remember that.
I said, Bryce Young is too small. You don't see guys win that way. I feel good about that take.
You're right about that
I feel good about that take. I said CJ Stroud, I'm just not sure about the upside. I think he's going to be pretty decent, but I'm not sure if the upside is there. CJ Stroud, I was wrong about. He's good. Maybe not quite as wrong as I appeared to be after year 1, but I think he's a good quarterback nonetheless. What I was dead wrong about was the upside play with Anthony Richardson. I thought he had the potential to be the next dude in the AFC South, and it just has not worked at all. So when you look back at that draft, it was very clear. The Texans were the biggest winner. They got C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson in the top 5.
Wasn't it 1 and 2? Wasn't that right? Didn't they trade up for 2
and
to get
3, I think.
Okay, I said because they traded up to get Anderson.
Number 1 was Bryce Young.
Yeah, and then I think they traded up for 3 to get Anderson, if I remember correctly.
Give up a future first-round pick, and I was like, that's crazy. You should not be doing that. And it was the correct decision there as well.
It was a tough year for you to read that draft, okay? You can't get all drafts right.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Coming up next, Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN.
Tune in every Friday from 11 to 2 as BK and Ferrario broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federico's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. And presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea.
All right, how do you like that weather today? So here's the question. Are you like me where if it gets like this, are you going to just switch right from the heat in the house to the air conditioner? Sometimes I do that. You know why? I can do it because I know that unit is in good shape because Classic Air Care has come by. They've maintained it. it's ready to go. If there's an issue, I know I can call them. They've been making people comfortable since 1926 for a reason. There's over 100 vans on the road. But if you are going to hit this time of the year where you start to go from the cool to the heat, you want to make sure everything's working. Now, look, I don't think we're done with the cold, and I don't think you do either. So make sure that if you're hearing sounds, if it's not blowing properly, that you got Classic Air Care out to the house to make sure that it is up and ready to go. You can get your spring tune-up done as well. They've got over 100 vans on the road. And look, if something goes wrong, they can get to you typically within 24 hours. And by the way, February is the month where you want to purchase a new unit. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. You get a new unit in the month of February from Classic Air Care, and they're going to give you a free water heater, a brand spanking new water heater to go with it. It's Classic Air Care. You can book an appointment online at classicaircare.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
On to the medal round in Milan. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Unbeaten, second-seeded Team USA will continue its quest for gold this afternoon against Sweden. Jacob Markstrom has emerged as Sam Hallam's starting goaltender, while Mike Sullivan puts Connor Hellebuck back between those pipes. Earlier this afternoon, Canada ousted Czechia 4-3. Jordan Binnington had 21 saves. Baseball Grapefruit League play starts Friday with St. Louis hosting Washington February 21st. Cardinals catcher and TMA guest Joel Pozo expressed enthusiasm about his club's makeup.
If we play the game right, it can be surprising, like everybody's saying, the Cardinals are young, they're not going to go anywhere. You don't know. Baseball is baseball, like sometimes young teams can, do some impact in baseball.
Your Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're talking everything St. Louis Blues as we head into the Blues booth on 101 ESPN. Presented by Boardwalk Hardwood Floors. Find your perfect new floor at boardwalkhardwood.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson Hotline to be joined by our friend, the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Kerbs, appreciate the time, man. Were you able to catch any of that Czechia versus Canada game earlier today?
I did. That's the best part about meetings is when they've got the game on, you can watch it while you're meeting. So I did. It was... Man, that one was a close one for Team Canada. My goodness, they did not look like they were ready to start that game, did they? And Czechia made it close on them.
It was a fun one. How have you felt about Binnington's performance thus far, Kerbs?
Man, I think he's been just fine. For whatever reason, that was another classic Binnington game today. It's a backdoor tap-in. On one side of it, it's a power play goal by a sniper in Pasternak, and then it's a 3-on-2 with a really bad back check by the forwards. And sometimes it must feel like I'm just making excuses for Binnington. I'm not. It's just, and even on the year, we tell you when it's a goal that we think that the goalie should have had. But I think his performance has been really good here in this tournament so far. And we'll see if Canada, if they see anything different, they decide to do something different with them. But I tell you what, I said this on the air, said it during the shows that I've done. The one thing I know for sure, there is not a single player playing in this hockey tournament that has more of a target or more individual pressure on every single play than Jordan Binnington. And I'm still fascinated to see how the story is fully written.
Kerbs, Speaking of Bennington and the Blues that are at the Olympics, I just thought of this during the break, and I even asked BK about it. You look at the guys that the Blues have sent over to the Olympics, and some of them are part of maybe the younger part of the core, like a Dvorsky and a Broberg, who will play later this afternoon, and then some are part of the current core in Parayko and Bennington. But most of the guys the Blues have sent over have played well in this Olympic tournament. Does it make you look at this and say, man, they have these pieces that are playing well best on best, so we have these pieces and you just write this off as maybe a one-off type of season in their build?
You know what, Tanner? The question you're asking is actually a really good one. To me, whether what we're seeing from the guys that are playing in the Olympics or not, or anything else. And here's why. You know what you have with a good chunk of these players. Like, you've seen the good years from Thomas and Kyrou and Parayko and Fowler and all that other stuff. The challenge that is facing Blues hockey management right now is, are they learning something even in tough years from some of these guys that say they have the character, the stamina, the drive, the work ethic, the whatever, to really push this thing through, break through on the other side, and once again become a perennial playoff team? Those are the tough answers. What concerns me in some way, and I got to be careful when I say concern, because I don't mean that I think something's going to happen along these lines, but like, I think you always have to be cautious when you're looking at a season where it's not just say one guy that's having a down year, and you're like, hey, is this the end of Arenado, right? Is this the end of, of this guy, of that guy, and all these other sports or hockey? Like, you look at it and you're going, okay, there feels like there's something bigger here because so many players are having that off year, right? Both special teams have been highly inconsistent. Both goaltenders started the season quite poorly, things like that. So I still think they have plenty of good pieces. I think that this is a team that when they are playing well and the guys are performing to the level they should perform at, you're talking about a playoff caliber team in terms of maybe a wild card spot, or somewhere in there throughout over half the season. You were talking about, just into January, you're being just 1 to 3 points out of a playoff spot. So that's without these guys producing. That's a long-winded way to say I have no idea how in the hell to answer your question, but I do think, and this isn't just because guys are performing in the Olympics, I do think there's still enough good pieces that there's something that I can't put my finger on, and clearly the coaches and management can't put their finger on as to why it just didn't click this year. And to me, that doesn't signal a complete blow-up. I think you just got to remind, people need to remind you, you're basically, this is the third full year of a retool, and stay the course. Trust me. I don't think you're looking so much as this year being anomaly as you might be looking at the second half of last year being the anomaly.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. He joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Kerbs, I did want to ask you about Dalibor Dvorsky because he's put together one hell of a Olympics thus far, breaking the rookie record for points in a single Olympics. What have you seen in his game, not only in the Olympics, I would say this dates back probably a couple of months now, from his development from game one to where we are right now?
You know what, BK, that's honestly, that's exactly why I asked the question to that's why I asked the question yesterday to Jim Montgomery about how hard it is to learn to be a centerman in the NHL. I talked to Robert Thomas about this a few weeks ago, and about taking faceoffs and what he's learned in the process, and then had him kind of compare it to his experience to what we're seeing with Dvorsky. It's 2.5 years of Robert Thomas coming into the league, playing on a wing, playing with guys like Bozak and Maroon, and that kind of thing, and learning from Ryan O'Reilly and Braden Shen, who are your top two centermen. The Blues, I think, this year have done a really good job of just letting Dvorsky get his feet wet and his experience there. They've even moved Pavel Buchnevich back to the middle. That allows them to keep Dvorsky in what can be a third line, sometimes second line role. So, what I take out of the BK, what I'm seeing in the Olympics, one, he was so excited to go. Two, if you talked to him beforehand, he expected to go. He goes, I expect to be there. I'm one of 5 Slovakians currently playing in the National Hockey League. He didn't worry about his age. He didn't worry about his lack of experience. That's how he looked at it. And then I'll tell you, the thing that I'm really taking now is on the biggest stage in terms of representing his country in the Olympics, it hasn't looked too big for him. And for me, that's something I look in a young guy. You know, the playoffs last year did not look too big for Jimmy Snuggerud. It didn't look too big for Jake Neighbors. You know, this scenario doesn't look too big for Dalibor Dvorsky, and that is just continued patient progress. And again, I did ask Jim Montgomery about it yesterday. He said you absolutely have to continue to have patience with these young guys and players like him, because it is hard to learn and hard to grow in the NHL when you don't get some of the extra practice time, some of the extra ability to make game time mistakes, you know, at the minor league level. It's hard to do it in the NHL.
He's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues. We appreciate him joining us each and every Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. Just had another game go final in the Olympics with Finland winning 3-2 in overtime against Switzerland. Switzerland took the early 2-0 lead in that one, ultimately losing 3-2 in overtime. Team USA back in action coming up a little after 2 o'clock against Sweden. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right. Sounds good, fellas. Have an awesome weekend, though. We're a little bit closer to getting it back going again.
That's right.
Good
We're
luck.
just around the corner from the Blues back in action. Appreciate Chris Kerber joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to the Zach Brown concert. That's coming up on March the 7th. We'll also hit the Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
It's an NBA weekend on ESPN. Saturday, Knicks and Rockets. Pre-game at 7. Tip-off at 7:30 p.m. Then Sunday, it's Warriors and Nuggets. Pre-game at 2. Tip-off at 2:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN.
Ready to ramp up the excitement, golf fans? BetMGM is making your next golf tournament winner bets even better with Second Chance. What's Second Chance? Ever bet on your favorite golfer to win a tournament only to see them miss the green? Well, with BetMGM's Second Chance promotion, you'll get your stake back in cash if your tournament winner bet finishes in second instead. That's right. Simply bet on any player to win a scheduled golf tournament during a promotional week. If you're right, you win. But if your pick finishes in second instead of first, you get your stake back in cash. Watch your favorite players go for the win all season long and bet knowing you'll get your stake back if they finish second. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Missouri only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards paid back in unrestricted withdrawable funds. Please play responsibly.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to download, super easy to use, and it's sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. If you'd prefer to watch the video version of the podcast, you can check that out at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. We talked a lot about the Cardinals today. Talked a bit in the open about SLU dropping its mulligan game potentially last night in the A-10. Also gave your thoughts leading into tonight's Mizzou game, a big one against Vanderbilt. Surprisingly, only a 3.5-point line in Vegas. A little closer than I would have anticipated. So all of that can be found after the show today at 101ESPN.com and on the free 101 ESPN app. Right now is your chance to score a pair of tickets to see Zach Brown. That's coming up on Saturday, March the 7th. It's coming up at the Dome at America Center. Find all of those ticket details and a bonus chance to win at 101ESPN.com and on the 101 ESPN mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. If you are texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question, you're getting that pair of tickets to see Zach Brown coming up on March the 7th. Earlier today, we talked a little bit about the head of the MLBPA and why he had to step away from his current position. What is the answer to that question? Why did he step away from his current position? If you have the correct answer, your texter number 101, you're going home with that pair of tickets to see Zach Brown coming up on March the 7th. All right, to finish out the show today, T-Bone, let's talk a little bit about this Mizzou game going into tonight because it's a big one. Mizzou Vandy, if they win, they have one hell of a feather to notch in their cap toward their potential NCAA tournament lives. Vanderbilt is 19th in the country in terms of the top 25 rankings. If you're looking at KenPom, you look at the net rankings, they're also in the top 20. How you feeling going into this one? It's actually dropped again. It's Vandy minus 2.5 now in Vegas. I don't know if there's some kind of an injury or something that I'm unaware of, but it's a little surprising to me.
I was going to say, it's got to be something that we're missing on the outside looking in, because I do think that you are looking at Vandy as a better basketball team, and I'm surprised that this line has dropped again to 2.5. I don't think Missouri takes care of business tonight. I think they end up losing this basketball game. I think they will fall, and they're still going to be searching. That doesn't mean they're out of it yet. I mean, we've said they got to get to about 10 wins. I think it's just going to be an uphill battle for them, because I think there's 2 games I would be willing to take them in down the home stretch. If they can get this one, I'd feel pretty good about their chances. If they don't, they're going to have to try and pull off an upset along the way.
Hey, maybe the odds makers are merely examining that fact that you had the recent loss to Oklahoma. You dropped recent tests against both Florida as well as Arkansas. I understand that was a big win against Alabama a couple of weeks ago, but it's not as if Vanderbilt is this bulletproof team. Yes, it did get out to a nice start in SEC play, really ratcheted up the offense, but it's a game that Missouri at minimum has to be in it well into the second half. You have to see a reversion to form in a way back at Mizzou Arena tonight with, as you said, BK, big-time contributions from not only T.O. Barrett, but Trent Pierce, too.
Yeah, they're without one of their guards for this one, but it's not as though he's missed like 7 games recently. So I don't know. I can't explain the line. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. This is a confusing one. I think Vandy will win. Vegas knows something that I don't, because they're not in the business of losing on a lot of these lines. But to me, I just look at this like, Vandy's much better.
Yeah.
It's just really that simple. They have better players, and they've been better all season long. They're a pretty good shooting team. They're good defensively. They're pretty solid at everything. I don't really see a great case for Mizzou. They need T.O. Barrett to play at a really high level and to get back to form. They need Mark Mitchell to have an awesome game and to be super decisive and to get to the rim. And then they need Jaden Stone and Trent Pierce to both have a pretty good night from 3. If all of that stuff happens, I think they can win. And it's not impossible. It's happened before for Mizzou this year. But that's just, You know, in a parlay, we always give Alex crap about his parlays and always puts together like 27 different legs together. That's basically what Mizzou needs every night, is to put together a 4-leg parlay every single night. Whereas with Vandy, like, they can have a few things go wrong and they're fine.
I was going to say, that list for Missouri that you read off there feels like a longer list of things that have to go right compared to what I think the Vanderbilt list would look like.
The Texas A&M game, the Florida game, the Kentucky game. It happened 3 times. Why not a 4th?
Somebody on the text line said it's a trap game for Vanderbilt. I just don't know how, because they're not at home. Because sometimes, like, you have 3 straight home games or something like that, you could see that scenario, but they just beat Texas A&M. This weekend they play against Tennessee. Both of those games at home. This one on the road. I guess maybe it's a trap game. I don't see it.
I don't think Vegas typically looks at it and goes, "Aha, trap game."
Because sometimes you'll see that, like if they had just come off a big win against Florida, and then on the other side of that they had like a game against Alabama or Kentucky or something.
Yeah.
Maybe then you could see it where that could be a trap game because it's in the middle. I don't see that. They're not really in the midst of a really tough stretch of their season. Just the Tennessee game this weekend, that's a big one, but they're not coming off of a big one previously.
And it's not
I don't get it.
Not as tough as like Arkansas or Alabama. I mean, I don't think it's a trap game by any means. Vegas knows something that we don't, and that's why the line is moving as big as it has.
I don't get it. But hopefully I'm wrong about all of it. If they do get the win, we'll certainly open with that tomorrow. For Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard.
Hey, this is Jay Delsing. Tune in every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 right here on 101 ESPN to hear from the biggest names in golf. 2026 is an extremely special year.